In this video series, we are going through all chapters of A Game of Thrones as a fully animated comic book experience. This is our third episode, and we highly suggest watching our previous two videos first before watching this one so you can catch up on all the previous chapters. As we continue through these chapters, we will show you what really happened compared to the book, the TV series, and the graphic novel, and include interesting theories and foreshadowing of key events whenever we can. Anyway, let's begin. Catelyn IV. We will make King's Landing within the hour. Catelyn Stark turned away from the banister and forced her lips into a smile. Your oarmen have done well by us, Captain. Each one of them shall have a silver stag as a token of my gratitude. Captain Moriotartis bowed. You are far too generous, Lady Stark. The honor of carrying a great lady like yourself is all the reward they need. But they'll take the silver anyway. Morio smiled. As you say. The captain spoke the common tongue well, though with a hint of a Tyroshi accent. An experienced seaman he was, by what he told Catelyn, 30 years on the water, first as a lowly oarsman, then quartermaster, and lately as a captain of his own ships. This one, Morio's fourth ship, was called the Storm Dancer, a two-masted, fast galley counting 60 oars. It was certainly the fastest ship in White Harbour when Catelyn, accompanied by Sir Rodrik Cassel, arrived in a hurry. Tyroshi people were said to be greedy, so Sir Rodrik eyed a different ship first. But Catelyn insisted they take the Storm Dancer. This turned out to be a good decision. The wind was ill, and without the 60 oars to fight it, they would have been days away from King's Landing. Almost there, Catelyn thought. Under the bandages, her fingers were still aching. A reminder she came to think of it. The last two fingers will never bend again, she knew, and the others lost their strength too. But this was nothing in exchange for Bran's life. So Rodrik appeared on the deck. My good friend, Morino greeted him, talking through his forked green beard. The Tyroshi loved colors, the brighter the better, even for beards. It is so fine to see you looking better. Yes, Sir Rodrik agreed. I haven't wanted to die for almost 2 days now. He bowed to Catelyn, my lady. He did look better. Lost some weight since they left White Harbour, but other than that, almost himself. Travelling the narrow sea tortured him badly, and he almost went over the rails once, near Dragonstone, when sudden winds caught them. The captain was just telling me that our voyage is almost at an end, she said. So Rodrik managed a wry smile. So soon? He looked somehow smaller and less fierce without his large white sideburns, and older too. Back at the bite though, he decided a shave was in order, as his seasickness befouled them beyond cleaning. I will leave you to discuss your business, Captain Morio said. He bowed and walked away. The galley cut the water gently, oars flying in a perfect rhythm, so Rodrik looked out on dry land. I have not been the most valiant of protectors. Catelyn touched his arm. We are here, Sir Rodrik, and safely. That is all that truly matters. Catelyn reached under her cloak, looking for the dagger with stiff fingers. It quieted her mind to touch it lightly. Now we must reach the King's Master-at-Arms and pray that he can be trusted. Sir Aron Santagar is a vain man, but an honest one. So Rodrik's hand went to his face to touch his whiskers, then remembered he didn't have them anymore. He looked nonplussed. He may know the blade, yes, but my lady, the moment we go ashore, we are at risk, and there are those at court who will know you on sight. Catelyn's mouth tightened. Littlefinger, she murmured. She saw his face as he once was, a boy. But he was Lord Baelish now, even if they still called him Littlefinger. Years and years ago, Catelyn's brother, Edmure, called him that, back at Riverrun. The Baelish had but a small land on the smallest of the fingers, and Peter himself was small too, as a boy. So Roderick cleared his throat. Lord Baelish once, He trailed off, looking for a polite way to put his thoughts out. Catelyn didn't care about politeness anymore. He was my father's ward. We grew up together in Riverrun. I thought of him as a brother, but his feelings for me were more than brotherly. When it was announced that I was to wed Brandon Stark, Peter challenged for the right to my hand. It was madness. Brandon was 20, Peter scarcely 15. I had to beg Brandon to spare Peter's life. He let him off with a scar. Afterward, my father sent him away. I have not seen him since. She lifted her face to the spray, maybe to wash away the memory. He wrote to me at Riverrun after Brandon was killed, but I burnt the letter unread. By then, I knew that Ned would marry me in his brother's place. Once again, Sir Roderick felt the long-gone sideburns. Littlefinger sits on the small council now. I knew he would rise high, Catelyn said. He was always clever, even as a boy, but it is one thing to be clever and another to be wise. I wonder what the years have done to him. Overhead, the far eyes called. The captain hurried across the deck, dealing out orders, and the storm dancer came alive with running sailors, and King's Landing appeared in front of them, sitting on top of its 3 hills. 3 centuries ago, Catelyn mused, those hills were nothing but forests and nobody lived there, save for a few fishermen on the north shore of the Blackwater Rush. Then Aegon the Conqueror came from his castle at Dragonstone. He landed here and made his first camp on the hills. Now the city creeped down to the shore, with its warehouses and merchant stalls, taverns and graveyards, brothels and inns and arbours. Catelyn heard the noise of the fish market even from there. Broad streets were lining the hillside, trees on each side or else narrow little alleys, so thin it was only enough for a single person. On Visenia's hill stood the 7 crystal towers of the great sept of Baelor. Across were the dragon pit, scorched walls barely holding a collapsing dome, all deserted. Between these two ran the Street of the Sisters. Catelyn could see the city walls too, high and strong. 100 docks were waiting for ships, and ships they got as the harbour was swarming with them. Deep water fishing boats as well as river runners all around, ferries, trading galleys from Braavos and Lys and Pentos. Lady Stark could even spy Queen Cersei's barge next to a whaler from Ibn. Further, there were warships, golden with iron rams. And above all that, pale red stones standing on Aegon's hill, the Red Keep. 7 towers with iron rampants, covered bridges, all the barracks and dungeons, and the Archer's Nest. Aegon himself had it built, but only by the time of his son, Maegor the Cruel, was it finished. When it was done, Maegor had all the workers killed, so nobody but his family would know the secrets of the keep. Yet the banners flying over the castle weren't of the black 3-headed dragon, but the crowned stag of House Baratheon. A swan ship from the Summer Isles swam past the storm dancer as the galley pulled to the shore. "My lady," Sir Roderick said, "I have thought on how best to proceed while I lay abed. You must not enter the castle. I will go in your stead and bring Sir Aron to you in some safe place." Catelyn looked at the old knight as the ship neared a pier. Captain Morio was shouting orders in brusque Valyrian. "You would be as much at risk as I would." Sir Roderick smiled. "I think not. I looked at my reflection in the water earlier and scarcely recognized myself. My mother was the last person to see me without whiskers, and she is 40 years dead. I believe I am safe enough, my lady." Morio yelled something. All at once, the 60 oars changed direction, backing the ship into place. Then, following another command from the captain, all the oars were pulled back inside the hull. The galley gently bumped into the dock, and Tyroshi seamen jumped to secure it. The captain came smiling. "King's Landing, my lady, as you did command, and never has a ship made a swifter or surer passage. Will you be needing assistance to carry your things to the castle?" "We shall not be going to the castle. Perhaps you can suggest an inn, some place clean and comfortable and not too far from the river." The Tyroshi touched his green beard. "Just so. I know of several establishments that might suit your needs. Yet first, if I may be so bold, there is the matter of the second half of the payment we agreed upon, and of course the extra silver you were so kind as to promise. 60 stags, I believe it was?" "For the oarmen," Catelyn reminded him. "Oh, of a certainty," said Morio, "though perhaps I should hold it to them until we return to Tyrosh, for the sake of their wives and children. If you give them the silver here, my lady, they will dice it away or spend it all for a night's pleasure." "There are worse things to spend money on," Sir Roderick put in. "Winter is coming." "A man must make his own choices," Catelyn said. "They earned the silver. How they spend it is no concern of mine." "As you say, my lady," Morio replied, bowing and smiling. Just in case, Catelyn gave the silver to the oarmen directly, 1 to each, and 2 more copper to the men who carried their luggage to the inn Captain Morio had suggested. It was an old establishment of Eel Alley. The woman running the place was an old crone with a lazy eye who bit the coin Catelyn offered. But the rooms were large and comfortable, and what's more, Morio stated that the inn had the best fish stew in the 7 kingdoms. Above all this, the old hag didn't care about their names. "I think it best if you stay away from the common room," Sir Roderick said, after they had settled in. "Even in a place like this, one never knows who may be watching." He was battle-ready, wearing his ringmail, sword, and dagger under his black cloak. "I will be back before nightfall, with Sir Aaron," he promised. "Rest now, my lady." Catelyn felt tired. This was a long trip from Winterfell, and she wasn't getting any younger. She opened her window, looking at rooftops, and beyond that, the black water. Catelyn watched Sir Roderick briskly cutting through the crowd, then decided the old night was right, and she could use some rest. The bed was made of straw instead of feathers, but she fell asleep all the same. Pounding on the door woke her. She sat up abruptly. Outside the town was painted red by the setting sun. She must have slept all afternoon. Someone hammered on the door again. "Open, in the name of the king." "A moment," she called out. Catelyn put on her cloak and grabbed the dagger from the bedside table before she opened the door. As the men entered the room, she recognized the black chainmail and golden cloaks of the city watch. One of them smiled upon seeing the dagger in her hand. "No need for that, milady. We're to escort you to the castle." "By whose authority?" she said. He showed her a ribbon. Catelyn gasped, seeing the mockingbird set in grey wax. "Peter," she said. So soon, Sir Roderick must have gotten caught. "Do you know who I am?" "No, milady," he said. "My Lord Littlefinger said only to bring you to him, and see that you were not mistreated." Catelyn nodded. "You may wait outside while I dress." It was hard to dress herself with her stiff fingers, but she managed, finishing the attire with a brown cloak. She wondered how Littlefinger found her, knowing that Sir Roderick wouldn't betray her. Sure, the night was old, but also loyal to the end. Maybe the Lannisters were already back. No, in that case, Ned would be too, and he would have come to see her. Morio, she realized. The captain knew who she was and where she stayed. Catelyn hoped the Tyroshi was paid well for his betrayal. They offered a horse to her. Lamps were being lit all around King's Landing as they went, and Catelyn felt like every eyes were on her as she passed. The Red Keep was shut for the night. The great gates closed and the bars down, but there were lights in the windows. The guards left the horses outside and led her through a narrow side door, then up some steps into a tower. The man was alone in the room, sitting behind a table, writing something in the light of an oil lamp. He put the pen down when she entered. "Cat," he said quietly, "why have I been brought here in this fashion?" He stood and waved the guards away. "Leave us." The men departed. "You were not mistreated, I trust," he said after they had gone. "I gave firm instructions." He noticed her bandages. "Your hands." Catelyn ignored this. "I am not accustomed to being summoned like a serving wench," she said icily. "As a boy, you still knew the meaning of courtesy." "I've angered you, my lady. That was never my intent." He looked sad. His look woke vivid memories in Catelyn. He was always sly, but after every mischief, he always looked just like how he looked at her now. All those years, and he was the same. Peter had been a small kid and become a small man, a tad shorter than Catelyn, thin with sharp features and laughing greyish-green eyes. The bear on his chin was new, and so was the silver in his hair, too early, as he was barely 30. He had always loved silver though, and even the mockingbird clasp of his cloak was made of it. "How did you know I was in the city?" she asked him. "Lord Varys knows all," Peter said with a sly smile. "He will be joining us shortly, but I wanted to see you alone first. It has been too long, Cat. How many years?" Catelyn ignored his attempt of familiarity too. She had questions on her own. "So it was the king's spider who found me." Littlefinger winced. "You don't want to call him that. He's very sensitive. Comes of being a eunuch, I imagine. Nothing happens in the city without Varys knowing. Ofttimes he knows about it before it happens. He has informants everywhere. His little birds, he calls them. One of his little birds heard about your visit. Thankfully, Varys came to me first." "Why you?" He shrugged. "Why not me? I am Master of Coin, the king's own counselor. Selmy and Lord Renly rode north to meet Robert, and Lord Stannis is gone to Dragonstone, leaving only Maester Pycelle and me. I was the obvious choice. I was ever a friend to your sister Lysa. Varys knows that." "Does Varys know about—" "Lord Varys knows everything, except why you are here." He lifted an eyebrow. "Why are you here?" "A wife is allowed to yearn for her husband, and if a mother needs her daughters close, who can tell her no?" Littlefinger laughed. "Oh, very good, my lady, but please don't expect me to believe that. I know you too well. What were the Tully's words again?" Her throat felt dry. "Family, duty, honor," she recited stiffly. He was right. He knew her too well. "Family, duty, honor," he echoed, "all of which required you to remain in Winterfell, where our hand left you. No, my lady, something has happened. This sudden trip of yours beseeks a certain urgency. I beg of you, let me help. Old sweet friends should never hesitate to rely upon each other." There was a soft knock on the door. "Enter," Littlefinger said. The man was plump, nice-smelling, and completely hairless. He was wearing soft velvets and silks in green and purple, and pointed slippers. "Lady Stark," he said, taking her hand in both of his. "To see you again after so many years is such a joy." His hands were soft and moist, and his breath smelled of lilac. "Oh, your poor hands! Have you burnt yourself, sweet lady? The fingers are so delicate. Our good Maester Pycelle makes a marvelous salve. Shall I send for a jar?" Catelyn slid her fingers from his grasp. "I thank you, my lord, but my own Maester Luwin has already seen to my hurts." Varys nodded. "I was grievous sad to hear about your son, and him so young. The gods are cruel." "On that we agree, Lord Varys," she said. This was nothing but a courtesy to him as a council member. Varys was not a lord of anything except the spiderweb of informants he had woven. The eunuch spread his soft hands. "On more than that, I hope, sweet lady. I have great esteem for your husband, our new hand, and I know we do both love King Robert. Yes, she was forced to say, for a certainty. Never has a king been so beloved as our Robert, quipped Littlefinger. He smiled slyly. At least in Lord Varys's hearing. Good lady, there are men in the free cities with wondrous healing powers. Say only the word, and I will send for one for your dear Bran. Maester Luwin is doing all that can be done for Bran, she told him. She didn't want to talk about Bran, especially not with these two. She barely trusted Littlefinger, and not even that much for Varys. Her grief was not for their eyes. Lord Baelish tells me that I have you to thank for bringing me here. Varys giggled like a little girl. Oh yes, I suppose I am guilty. I hope you forgive me, kind lady. He sat gingerly, putting his hands together. I wonder if we might trouble you to show us the dagger. Lady Stark stared at the man, stunned. Magic. It must have been. There was no other way for him to know about the dagger. None, unless... What have you done to Sir Roderick? She demanded. Littlefinger was lost. I feel rather like the knight who arrives at the battle without his lance. What dagger are we talking about? Who is Sir Roderick? Sir Roderick Castle is Master-at-Arms at Winterfell, Varys informed him. I assure you, Lady Stark, nothing at all has been done to the good knight. He did call here early this afternoon. He visited with Sir Aaron Santagar in the armory, and they talked of a certain dagger. About sunset they left the castle together and walked that dreadful hovel where you were staying. They are still there, drinking in the common room, waiting for your return. Sir Roderick was very distressed to find you gone. How could you know all that? The whisperings of little birds, Varys said, smiling. I know things, sweet lady. That is the nature of my service. He shrugged. You do have the dagger with you, yes? Catelyn pulled it out and threw it on the table in front of the eunuch. Here, perhaps your little birds will whisper the name of the man it belongs to. Varys picked it up very carefully and tried its edge with his thumb. He dropped the blade back on the table with a squeal as a blood reddened his finger. Careful, Catelyn told him. It's sharp. Nothing holds an edge like Valyrian steel, Littlefinger said, as Varys sucked at his thumb with reluctant admiration. Littlefinger lifted it and tested the grip. He even flipped it, catching it with the other hand. Such sweet balance. You want to find the owner, is that the reason for this visit? You have no need of Sir Aaron for that, my lady. You should have come to me. And if I had, she said, what would you have told me? I would have told you that there was only one knife like this at King's Landing. He held the blade now between his thumb and forefinger and threw it across the room masterfully. The blade ended in the wood of the door, trembling. It's mine! Yours? It made no sense. Peter was not part of King Robert's company. Until the tourney on Prince Joffrey's name day, he said, walking up to the room to retrieve the dagger. I back Sir Jaime in the jousting, along with half the court. Peter's grin made him look like a boy again. When Loras Tyrell unhorsed him, many of us became a trifle poorer. Sir Jaime lost 100 golden dragons, the Queen lost an emerald pendant, and I lost my knife. Her Grace got the emerald back, but the winner kept the rest. Who? Catelyn demanded, her mouth dry. Her fingers throbbed with pain. The imp, said Littlefinger, as Lord Varys watched her face. Tyrion Lannister. And this is where Catelyn IV, A Game of Thrones ends. Now, this chapter actually introduces the biggest plot hole in A Song of Ice and Fire, and that is, why didn't Tyrion do anything to Littlefinger when they both know Peter lied about the dagger? For example, as Hand of the King, Tyrion doesn't execute Littlefinger, even though that's exactly what Tywin told him to do in Tyrion 9. And if these counselors are playing us false, Tyrion knew. Spikes, he sighed. Heads, walls. I see you have taken a few lessons from me. More than you know, father, Tyrion answered quietly. But then, in Tyrion IV, A Clash of Kings, he monologues to himself about what to do about Littlefinger. Now, you might also be thinking, why didn't Varys out Littlefinger? Well, as we learn in Arya III, Varys thinks that the Lannisters did it anyway. The fools tried to kill his son, and what's worse, they made a murmur's farce of it. He's not a man to put that aside. I warn you, the wolf and lion will soon be at each other's throats, whether we like it or no. Also, it's interesting to think what would have happened if Varys hadn't told Littlefinger about Catelyn's arrival to King's Landing. If Varys wanted to know why Catelyn had come, he could have sent Barristan Selmy or Lord Stannis and Renly had they been present, but instead had to settle for Littlefinger, who, of course, exploited the situation to his advantage and started the War of the Five Kings. Here are some of the other differences between the HBO TV show and book. In the book, Catelyn and Sir Roderick arrive at King's Landing by ship from White Harbour. In the show, they come by riding horses on the King's Road. In the book, Catelyn and Roderick arrive before Eddard and the royal party, while in the show they arrive afterwards. In the book, Catelyn and Roderick go to an inn, while in the show they are both taken to a brothel that Littlefinger owns by several gold cloaks. The show gives the explanation that Catelyn would be easily noticed if she went to the Red Keep. Also in the show, Varys claims not to know who the dagger belongs to, while in the book, Peter doesn't give Varys the chance to reveal it belongs to him. Jon III. The courtyard was filled with a song of steel. Under his black wool, leathers and chainmail, Jon was sweating as he pressed forward. Grenn stumbled, trying to defend himself clumsily. He lifted his sword, but Jon was quicker, dealing a swiping blow at the other boy's legs, making him stagger. Grenn attacked back, but all he got for his trouble was a dented helmet. He went on, now cutting from the side, and Jon parried, then hit him in the chest. Grenn now sat in the snow, and Jon disarmed him with a slash on his wrist, drawing a cry of pain. "Enough!" Sir Alliser Thorne had a voice hard as steel. Grenn cradled his hand. "The bastard broke my wrist!" "The bastard hamstrung you, opened your empty skull, and cut off your hand. Or would have if these blades had an edge. It's fortunate for you that the watch needs stable boys as well as rangers." Sir Alliser gestured at Jaren and Toad. "Get the Orcus on his feet. He has funeral arrangements to make." Jon removed his helmet as the other two pulled Grenn up. The morning was cold and the air felt good on his face. He used his sword to lean on something and took deep breaths, savoring his victory. "That is a long sword, not an old man's cane," Sir Alliser said sharply. "Are your legs hurting, Lord Snow?" The boy hated the mockery tone, with which Sir Alliser said that ever since he had arrived at his first practice. The other boys echoed the name, and Jon was addressed as such everywhere. He now put the sword back into its scabbard. "No," he replied. Thorne stalked toward him, black leathers faintly sighing. He was a hard man, not big, but strong, around 50, with his hair graying, but his eyes sharp. "The truth now," he commanded. "I'm tired," Jon admitted. His arms were now feeling the weight of the longsword, and he knew the bruises he had collected would soon start to bother him. "What you are is weak." "I won." "No, the Orcus lost." Someone chuckled. Jon didn't answer. So far, nobody Sir Alliser set against him was able to beat him, but the old knight was still hard on him. Jon felt nothing but hatred for him and for the other boys. "That will be all," Thorne told them. "I can only stomach so much ineptitude in any one day. If the others ever come for us, I pray they have archers, because you lot are fit for nothing more than arrow fodder." Jon walked back to the armory alone, following the others. He was always alone. 20 boys in his group, but not one friend. Most were older than him by a few years, but none was half as good as Robb had been at 14. The boy called Daeron was quick, but afraid. Pip thought his sword was a dagger, Jaren was weak, Grenn clumsy, Holder, though strong, was prone to walk into attacks. Jon despised them all. In the armory, Jon Snow hung his sword on a hook. Slowly he stripped off his leathers, ringmail and woolen shirt. Despite the coal burning in the brazier, he felt cold. He was always cold here on the wall, and he thought that soon he'll forget what it was to be warm. He felt tired as he put on his everyday blacks. He thought of the warm halls of Winterfell, how hot water ran through the walls like blood in veins. There was no such thing in Castle Black, only cold walls and cold people. Tyrion Lannister had warned him about all of this. He told him how miserable a place the wall can be on their way north, when it was already too late. Did his father, Lord Eddard, know what awaited his son? If so, that only made it worse. His uncle was gone too, abandoned him in the cold end of the world. On the wall, the Benjen Stark he knew became someone else. As First Ranger, he was high up, spending his days with Commander Mormont and Maester Aemon, while Jon was tortured by Sir Alliser Thorne. Only 3 days after they arrived, Jon was told that Benjen would soon set out with a dozen men, scouting the haunted forest. He found his uncle in the common room and asked him for a place in his group. Benjen Stark refused. "This is not Winterfell," he told him as he cut his meat. "On the wall, a man only gets what he earns. You're no ranger, Jon, only a green boy with the smell of summer still on you." Stupidly, Jon argued. "I'll be 15 on my name day," he said, "almost a man grown." Benjen Stark frowned. "A boy you are, and a boy you'll remain until Sir Alliser says you are fit to be a man of the Night's Watch. If you thought your Stark blood would win you easy favors, you were wrong. We put aside our old families when we swear our vows. Your father will always have a place in my heart, but these are my brothers now." He pointed around with his dagger, indicating all the hard men around them, all in black. The next morning, Jon watched his uncle leave. One of Benjen's rangers, a big, ugly man, was singing a rude song as he readied his horse, and though Benjen Stark smiled at that, he was serious when he spotted Jon. "How often must I tell you no, Jon? We'll speak when I return." As Jon watched them leave through a tunnel, Jon thought about all the terrible things Tyrion Lannister had told him on the way here, and imagined Benjen laying on the bloody snow. It made him feel sick. Instead of pondering, he went back to his cell to see Ghost and buried his face in the direwolf's white fur. He decided to make his loneliness an armor. Castle Black had no godswood and only a drunken septon, but Jon was not one to pray anyway. He thought that if any gods were real, they were as cruel as a long winter. He missed his siblings, Rickon begging for sweets, Robb, both rival and best friend, the always curious Bran stalking after the two of them wanting to join. And the girls, even Sansa, despite her only ever calling him my half-brother. But most of all, even more than Robb, he missed Arya, with her scraped knees and tangled hair ever so fierce. She was an outcast like him, and she could make Jon smile. Jon wanted to be with her now, tussling up her hair, watching her grimace and hearing her voice finishing his sentence. "You broke my wrist, bastard boy." Jon looked up. Gren, red-faced, was looking down at him, backed up by 3 of his friends. Jon knew one of them, a short, ugly boy called Todder, or more often, the Toad. The other 2 were the Aras Yoren had brought along, but Jon didn't remember their names. He tried to avoid them all, bullies and brutes without a shred of honor. Jon stood up. "I'll break the other one if you ask nicely." Gren wasn't only older than Jon, but a good head taller too. In fact, all 4 of the boys were bigger than him, but he wasn't scared. He had defeated them all already in practice. "Maybe we'll break you," one of the Aras said. "Try." Jon reached for his sword, but a boy grabbed his arm and twisted it. "You made us look bad," complained Toad. You looked bad before I ever met you, Jon told him. The boy holding his arm pulled it upward and pain surged through Jon. Toad stepped close. The little lordling has a mouth on him, he said. He had pig eyes, small and shiny. Is that your mummy's mouth, bastard? What was she? Some whore? Tell us her name. Maybe I had her a time or two. He laughed. Jon was thrashing and twisting, and with his heel slammed the other boy's feet. He heard a painful yelp, and his arm was free. He jumped the toad, taking him on the ground, landing on his chest. His hands on the other boy's throat, hitting the floor with his head. It didn't last. Two of them pulled Jon off the toad, throwing him on his back. Gren started to kick. Jon was trying to roll away from him as a voice thundered across the armory. Stop this now! Jon stood. Daniil Noy, the armorer, was staring at the boys. The yard is for fighting, he said. Keep your quarrels out of my armory, or I'll make them my quarrels. You won't like that. Toad felt for the back of his head and his fingers were bloody. He tried to kill me. It's true, I saw it, one of the Aras put in. He broke my wrist, Gren added, showing his arm to Daniil Noy. The armorer barely looked at it. A bruise, perhaps a sprain. Maester Aemon will give you a salve. Go with him. Todder, the head wants looking after. The rest of you return to your cells. Not you, Snow. You stay. Jon sat on the bench heavily, not caring about the threatening looks the other boys gave him. His arm ached. The Watch has need of every man it can get, Daniil Noy said to Jon. Even men like Toad. You won't win any honors killing him. Jon's anger flared. He said my mother was a whore. I heard him. What of it? Lord Eddard Stark was not a man to sleep with whores, Jon said icily. His honor did not prevent him from fathering a bastard, did it? Jon felt cold rage. Can I go? You can go when I tell you to go. Jon looked at the coal smoke emerging from the brazier. Noy reached under his chin and lifted his head none too gently. Look at me when I'm talking to you, boy. Jon obeyed. The armorer was a big man, chest and gut like kegs alike, a flat nose and unshaven face. He only had one arm, and the sleeve of his tunic was rolled back and pinned at his shoulder. Words won't make your mother a whore. She was what she was, and nothing Toad says can change that. You know, we have men on the wall whose mothers were whores. But not mine, Jon thought stubbornly. Of course, he didn't know if it was true. Lord Eddard had never told him who his mother was. Jon still dreamed about her, often thinking he could remember her face. In the dreams, she was beautiful and a noble. You think you had it hard, being a High Lord's bastard, the armorer went on. That boy, Jaren, is a Septon's get, and Cotter Pike is the base-born son of a tavern wench. Now he commands Eastwatch by the Sea. I don't care, Jon said. I don't care about them, and I don't care about you, or Thorne, or Benjen Stark, or any of it. I hate it here. It's cold. Yes, cold, and hard and mean. That's the wall, and the men who walk it. Not like the stories your wet nurse told you. Well, piss on the stories, and piss on your wet nurse. This is the way it is, and you're here for life, same as the rest of us. Life, Jon repeated bitterly. It was easy for him to talk about life. He already had one. Daniil Noy had only taken the black after he lost his arm, and was a known smith for Stannis Baratheon before. He travelled and ate and had women and saw battle. Rumour had it Daniil Noy forged King Robert's legendary warhammer, the one that killed Rhaegar Targaryen. He had all that, and when he got old, more than 30, he got cut, and the festered wound had taken his arm. Only then, after a whole life lived, did Daniil Noy come to the wall. Yes, life, Noy said. A long life or a short one, it's up to you, Snow. The road you're walking, one of your brothers will slit your throat for you one night. They're not my brothers, Jon snapped. They hate me because I'm better than they are. No, they hate you because you act like you're better than they are. They look at you and see a castle-bred bastard who thinks he's a lordling. The armorer leaned close. You're no lordling. Remember that. You're a Snow, not a Stark. You're a bastard and a bully. A bully? Jon echoed incredulously. The accusation hit him hard. They were the ones who came after me. 4 of them. 4 that you've humiliated in the yard. 4 who are probably afraid of you. I've watched you fight. It's not training with you. Put a good edge on your sword and they'd be dead meat. You know it, I know it, they know it. You leave them nothing. You shame them. Does that make you proud? Jon thought about it. He was proud when he won a bout, and why shouldn't he be? But now Noi was taking even that away, saying it as if it was wrong. They're all older than me, Jon said defensively. Older and bigger and stronger. That's the truth. I'll wager your master-at-arms taught you how to fight bigger men at Winterfell, though. Who was he? Some old knight? Sir Roderick Castle? Jon said warily. He sensed a trap. Felt it spring as Donal Noi leaned closer. Now think on this, boy. None of these others have ever had a master-at-arms until Sir Alliser. Their fathers were farmers and wagon men and poachers, smiths and miners and oars on a trading galley. What they know of fighting, they learned between decks, in the alleys of Old Town and Lannisport, in wayside brothels and taverns on the King's Road. They may have clacked a few sticks together before they came here, but I promise you, not 1 in 20 was ever rich enough to own a real sword. His look was grim. So how do you like the taste of your victories now, Lord Snow? Don't call me that, Jon said sharply, but his anger was seeping away. Shame and guilt occupied its place. I didn't think. Best you start thinking, Noi warned him. That or sleep with a dagger by your bed. Now go. Jon left the armory around noon. The sun had emerged over the clouds and the wall was shining blue and crystalline. Even after weeks, the sight of the gigantic ice building gave Jon shivers. Long centuries of dirt dulled it, but not when the sun shone. The wall was bright and alive in the sunshine. The biggest thing men had ever built, Uncle Benjen told Jon when they first spotted the wall. And beyond a doubt, the most useless, Tyrion Lannister had added with a grin. But even he was silenced as they had gotten closer. They could see it from miles away. The pale blue line cutting across the entire horizon as far as the eyes could see. The end of the known world. Castle Black seemed like toy blocks next to the Titanic wall. Just tiny toy buildings scattered on the snow. The place was nothing compared to Winterfell, not even a real castle. Without any walls, it couldn't be defended, only if the attack came from the north. But the Night's Watch had its only enemy that way. The wall was near 700 feet tall, 3 times taller than the biggest of the towers it sheltered. Benjen told Jon that the top was wide enough for a dozen knights to ride beside one another. There were catapults and wooden cranes up there, and tiny silhouettes in black walked amongst them. Looking up at the wall now, Jon felt the same way he did for the first time he had seen it. He sometimes forgot the wall was even there, like one forgets about the sky, but its ever-looming presence always crawled back into his mind. It was older than the kingdoms themselves. Jon felt the amazing weight of it all, and knew if the wall would fall, the world would follow. Makes you wonder what lies beyond, a familiar voice said. Jon looked around. Lannister, I thought I was alone. Tyrion Lannister was wearing so many furs he looked like a tiny bear. There's much to be said for taking people unawares. You never know how much you might learn. You won't learn anything from me, Jon told him. The boy barely saw the dwarf since they arrived. Being the Queen's brother, Lannister was an honored guest even here. The dwarf had been given rooms in the King's Tower, a place no real king had visited for a century, and he was invited to Mormont's own table. When he wasn't with the Lord Commander, Tyrion was riding on top of the wall or dicing with Sir Alliser and other officers. Oh, I learn things everywhere I go. The imp gestured at the wall with his walking stick. As I was saying, why is it that when one man builds a wall, the next man immediately needs to know what's on the other side? He looked at Jon with his mismatched eyes. You do want to know what's on the other side, don't you? It's nothing special, Jon said. In reality, he yearned to ride out with Uncle Benjen, see the haunted forest and fight Mance Rayder's wildlings or even the others, but he knew better than to say it out loud. The rangers say it's just woods and mountains and frozen lakes, with lots of snow and ice. And the Grumpkins and the Snarks, Tyrion said. Let us not forget them, Lord Snow. Or else what's this big thing for? Don't call me Lord Snow. The dwarf lifted an eyebrow. Would you rather be called the imp? Let them see their words can cut you and you'll never be free of their mockery. If they want to give you a name, take it, make it your own, then they can't hurt you with it anymore. He gestured with his stick again. Come, walk with me. They'll be serving some vile stew in the common hall by now, and I could do with a bowl of something hot. Jon was hungry, so he walked with the dwarf, slowing down to accommodate his limping. The wind was awake, making the wooden structures creak. A forgotten shutter was banging somewhere. With a thump, snow fell from a roof or another, hitting the frozen ground near them. I don't see you a wolf, Lannister said as they walked. I chain him up in the old stables when we're training. They board all the horses in the east stables now, so no one bothers him. The rest of the time, he stays with me. My sleeping cell is in Harden's tower. That's the one with the broken battlement, no? Shattered stone in the yard below, and a lean-to it like our noble King Robert after a long night's drinking. I thought all those buildings had been abandoned. Jon shrugged. No one cares where you sleep. Most of the old keeps are empty. You can pick any cell you want. In the old days, Castle Black was home to 5,000 men and horses. Now there were barely 500, and the castle was falling apart. Tyrion laughed. I'll be sure to tell your father to arrest more stonemasons before your tower collapses. Jon felt the mockery, but he knew Lannister had a point. Out of the 19 strongholds the wall had, now only 3 were occupied. Eastwatch on the shore, Shadow Tower near the mountains where the wall ended, and in the middle, Castle Black. All of the other keeps were now empty and dead. It's better that I'm by myself, Jon said stubbornly. The rest of them are scared of Ghost. Wise boys, Lannister said. Then he moved on to a new topic. The talk is your uncle is too long away. Jon recalled how he wished his uncle dead in his anger and turned away. Tyrion Lannister could often sense hidden things, and he didn't want the dwarf to see his guilt. He said he'd be back by my name day, he admitted. The day came and went weeks ago. They were looking for Sir Waymar Royce. His father is bannerman to Lord Arryn. Uncle Benjen said they might search as far as the Shadow Tower. That's all the way up in the mountains. I hear that a good many rangers have vanished of late, Lannister said as they climbed the stairs to the common hall. He grinned at Jon. Perhaps the Grumpkins are hungry this year. The huge hall was warm from an immense fire. Crows were sitting on the beams of the roof, and they cried as he took a bowl of stew and a piece of black bread. He saw Gren and the others near the hearth, laughing. Jon fell deep in thought. He then turned away and picked a seat far from the other boys. Tyrion sat with him, looking at the stew disdainfully. Barley, onion, carrot, he muttered. Someone should tell the cooks that turnip isn't a meat. It's mutton stew. Jon pulled his gloves off to warm his hands on the hot bowl. He found the smell nice. Snow. It was Sir Alliser. His voice showing more interest in the boy than ever before. Jon turned. The Lord Commander wants to see you. Now. Jon froze. What business could the Lord Commander possibly have with him? Maybe there is word about Uncle Benjen. Is he truly dead? Is it my uncle? He blurted. Is he returned safe? The Lord Commander is not accustomed to waiting, was Sir Alliser's reply. And I am not accustomed to having my commands questioned by bastards. Tyrion Lannister rose. Stop it, Thorne. You're frightening the boy. Keep out of matters that don't concern you, Lannister. You have no place here. I have a place at court, though, the dwarf said, smiling. A word in the right ear, and you'll die a sour old man before you get another boy to train. Now, tell Snow why the old bear needs to see him. Is there news of his uncle? No, Sir Alliser said. This is another matter entirely. A bird arrived this morning from Winterfell, with a message that concerns his brother. He corrected himself. His half-brother. Bran, Jon breathed, standing abruptly. Something's happened to Bran. Tyrion Lannister laid a hand on his arm. Jon, he said, I am truly sorry. The boy didn't listen. He hurried across the hall, leaving them behind. He reached the commander's keep in a run, 2 steps at a time. He raced up the stairs. He was panting when he finally found the Lord Commander. Bran, he said, what does it say about Bran? Jor Mormont was a gruff old man with a large bald head and a grey beard. A raven was sitting on his arm, and the Lord Commander was feeding it with corn. I am told you can read. He shook his arm and the raven took off, landing on the windowsill. As Lord Mormont pulled a roll of paper to give it to Jon, the bird said, Corn! Then repeated it in a raucous voice a few more times. Jon touched the silhouette of a direwolf in the broken wax. The writing was Robb's, but it was blurry at first. Then Jon realized he was crying. Through tears, he read on. He woke up, he said. The gods gave him back. Crippled, Mormont said. I'm sorry, boy. Read the rest of the letter. He did, but how, it didn't matter. What was important was that Bran was alive. My brother is going to live, he told Mormont. The old man grabbed a fistful of corn and whistled. The raven came, now echoing Jon. Live! Live! Jon ran out, the letter still in his hand. My brother is going to live, he told the guards. They exchanged a look. Back in the common hall, Jon found Tyrion just finishing his bowl. The boy grabbed the dwarf under the arms and picked him up, spinning around with him. Bran is going to live, he whooped. Tyrion looked startled. Jon lowered him on the ground and gave him the letter. Here, read it, he said. Others were gathering to see what the commotion was about. Jon saw Grenn, his hand bandaged. He was now anxious and not at all menacing. Jon took a step towards him, but the boy backed up, hands held out. Stay away from me now, you bastard. Jon smiled at him. I'm sorry about your wrist. Robb used the same move on me once, only with a wooden blade. It hurt like 7 hells, but yours must be worse. Look, if you want, I can show you how to defend that. Alliser Thorne overheard him. Lord Snow wants to take my place now, he sneered. I'd have an easier time teaching a wolf to juggle than you will training this Orcus. I'll take that wager, Sir Alliser, Jon said. I'd love to see Ghost juggle. Grenn gasped. Silence enveloped them. Then Tyrion scoffed with laughter. Others joined in, waking some of the crows on the beams. Even Grenn chuckled. Sir Alliser stared at Jon. He didn't laugh. And as others did, his face darkened. That was a grievous error, Lord Snow, he said, his voice full of hatred. And this is where Jon III ends. It's funny to think how different Jon's story would be if he hadn't offended Alliser Thorne, but at the same time, their mutual disdain might have been inevitable. Moreover, this chapter introduces Donal Noye, probably one of the best characters omitted from the TV series. In this chapter, we learn he'd only taken the black after he'd lost an arm at the siege of Storm's End. He'd taken a glancing blow from an axe and the wound had festered until the whole arm had to come off. However, there isn't much fighting during a siege except at the gate. So maybe Donal Noye was commanding the defense of a gate during a Tyrell attack and lost his arm to an axeman who was trying to chop down the door or sever the crossbar. Anyway, as we know, Storm's End didn't fall, and so Donal Noye successfully defended the gate, which is sadly poetic since Noye would die defending the gate at Castle Black from a giant. Both times he successfully defended the gate despite losing his arm the first time and his life the second time. Mag himself went in that gate of yours and never did come out. He died on the sword of a brave man named Daniil Yuminov. Some great lord was he, this Daniil Yuminov, one of your shiny knights. A blacksmith. He only had one arm. Here are some of the other differences between the HBO TV show and book. In the show, many recruits in the Night's Watch are omitted in the series, such as Toad and Hadler, and Darion's character only making a brief appearance. Parts of Darion's dialogue is given to Pip's character. In the first scene at the wall, there are 3 notable recruits: Gren, Pip, and Rast. Rast also gets more screen time than in the book. There is also an unnamed recruit with long hair who often appears with Rast. In the book, Rast is called Rat, and Gren is called Orcus by Alistair Thorne. These derogatory nicknames are not mentioned in the show. In the fight with Gren, Jon breaks Gren's nose instead of Gren's wrist. He is also shown fighting more recruits in the books. In the show, it is Tyrion, not Daniil Yuminov, who rescues Jon from the other recruits and chides Jon before giving him the news about Bran. Eddard IV. Ned Stark was hungry, irritated, and above all, tired as he rode through the tall bronze doors of the Red Keep. He didn't even have time to dismount, vaguely thinking about a hot bath and roasted chicken, when a steward found him, telling him that Grand Maester Pycelle requested his present at his earliest convenience. "It will be convenient on the morrow," Ned snapped as he dismounted. The steward bowed. "I shall give the councillors your regrets, my lord." "No, damn it," Ned said. Offending important people before he even started as a hand was probably unwise. "I will see them. Pray, give me a few moments to change into something more presentable." "Yes, my lord," the steward said. "We have given you Lord Arryn's former chambers in the Tower of the Hand. If it please you, I shall have your things taken there." "My thanks," Ned said as he pulled his riding gloves off. The rest of his company was just arriving. His own steward Vayon Poole just showed, and Ned addressed him. "It seems the council has urgent need of me. See that my daughters find their bedchambers, and tell Jory to keep them there. Arya is not to go exploring." Poole bowed. Ned turned back to the other steward. "My wagons are still straggling through the city. I shall need appropriate garments." "It will be my great pleasure," the steward said. Not long later, Eddard Stark entered the council chambers, tired to the bone and wearing borrowed clothes. 4 members of the small council were present, waiting for him. A rich chamber it was. Myrish carpets on the floor, 100 paintings on the wall, carvings from the Summer Isles. A pair of Valyrian sphinxes guarded the door, polished eyes black in marble faces. His least favorite counselor, Varys, addressed Ned first. "Lord Stark, I was grievous sad to hear about your troubles on the King's Road. We have all been visiting the Sept to light candles for Prince Joffrey. I pray for his recovery." His clammy hands left powdered marks on Ned's sleeve, and he could smell rotting flowers on the eunuch. "Your gods have heard you," Ned replied politely. "The prince grows stronger every day." Ned freed himself from Varys's grip and crossed the room toward Lord Renly, who was talking to a small man, Littlefinger. Though Renly had only been 8 when Robert took the Iron Throne, he was now a man. So much like the young Robert, Ned found it disconcerting. Ned kept thinking that he was seeing his old friend fresh after the victory at the Trident. "I see you arrived safely, Lord Stark," Renly said. "And you as well," Ned replied. "You must forgive me, but sometimes you look the very image of your brother Robert." "A poor copy," Renly said with a shrug. "Though much better dressed," Littlefinger joked. "Lord Renly spends more on clothing than half the ladies of the court." Renly was wearing dark green velvet, a dozen golden stags embroidered on it. His half cape was gold, fastened with an emerald brooch. "There are worse crimes," Renly laughed. "The way you dress, for one." Littlefinger ignored him. He was now staring at Ned with a smile that was nearly rude. "I have hoped to meet you for some years, Lord Stark. No doubt Lady Catelyn has mentioned me to you." "She has," Ned replied coldly. Littlefinger's arrogance was already annoying him. "I understand you knew my brother Brandon as well." Renly laughed. Varys came closer to listen. "Rather too well," Littlefinger said. "I still carry a token of his esteem. Did Brandon speak of me too?" "Often, and with some heat," Ned said, hoping to end the conversation there. He never had patience for silly little duels fought with words. "I should have thought that heat ill suits you, Starks," Littlefinger said. "Here in the south, they say you are all made of ice and melt when you ride below the neck." "I do not plan on melting soon, Lord Baelish. You may count on it." Ned moved to the council table and said, "Maester Pycelle, I trust you are well." The Grand Maester smiled gently. "Well enough for a man of my years, my lord," he replied. "Yet I do tire easily, I fear." He only had a glory of wispy white hair around his otherwise bald head. Regular maesters like Lewin wore a simple choker as a mark of their profession, but Pycelle had 24 chains wound together around his neck, covering his entire chest. Each link was made of a different metal, with precious gems adorning them. "Perhaps we might begin soon," the Grand Maester said, lacing his fingers together on his big belly. "I fear I shall fall asleep if we wait much longer." "As you will." The king's chair remained empty, and Ned took the one on its right, as was customary for the king's hand. "My lords," he said formally, "I am sorry to have kept you waiting." "You are the king's hand," Varys said. "We serve at your pleasure, Lord Stark." As the others sat, Ned was thinking how much he didn't belong in this room with all these men. He recalled what Robert had said in the crypts back at Winterfell, how he was surrounded by bootlickers and fools. Now Ned was wondering which were which, though he already had a pretty good idea. "We are but 5, he pointed out. "Lord Stannis took himself to Dragonstone not long after the king went north," Varys said, "and our galleon Sir Barristan no doubt rides besides the king as he makes his way through the city, as befits the Lord Commander of the Kingsguard." "Perhaps we had best wait for Sir Barristan and the king to join us," Ned suggested. Renly Baratheon laughed aloud. "If we wait for my brother to grace us with his royal presence, it could be a long sit." "Our good King Robert has many cares," Varys said. "He entrusts some small matters to us, to lighten his load." "What Lord Varys means is that all this business of coin and crops and justice bores my royal brother to tears," Lord Renly said, "so it falls to us to govern the realm. He does send a command from time to time." He drew out a small roll of paper. "This morning he commanded me to ride ahead with all haste and ask Grand Maester Pycelle to convene this council at once. He has an urgent task for us." With a smile, Littlefinger relayed the paper to Ned. It had the royal seal on it. Ned broke it and flattened the roll, reading the urgent command of the king with disbelief. "Gods be good," he swore. "What Lord Eddard means to say," Lord Renly announced, "is that His Grace instructs us to stage a great tournament in honor of his appointment as the Hand of the King." "How much?" asked Littlefinger mildly. Ned answered with what was in the letter. 40,000 golden dragons to the champion, 20,000 to the man who comes second, another 20 to the winner of the melee, and 10,000 to the victor of the archery competition. 90,000 gold pieces, Littlefinger sighed, and we must not neglect the other costs. Robert will want a glamorous feast. That means cooks, carpenters, serving girls, singers, jugglers, fools. Fools we have in plenty, Lord Renly said. Will the treasury bear the expense? Pycelle asked Littlefinger. What treasury is that? Littlefinger replied with a smirk. Spare me your foolishness, Maester. You know as well as I that the treasury has been empty for years. I shall have to borrow the money. No doubt the Lannisters will be accommodating. We owe Lord Tywin some 3 million dragons at present. What matter is another 100,000? Ned was stunned. Are you claiming that the crown is 3 million gold pieces in debt? The crown is more than 6 million gold pieces in debt, Lord Stark. The Lannisters are the biggest part of it, but we have also borrowed from Lord Tyrell, the Iron Bank of Bravos, and several Tyroshi trading cartels. Of late, I have had to turn to the faith. The High Septon haggles worse than a Dornish fishmonger. Ned was aghast. Aerys Targaryen left a treasury flowing with gold. How could you let this happen? The master of coin finds the money, the king and the hands spend it, Littlefinger shrugged. I will not believe that Jon Arryn allowed Robert to beggar the realm, Ned said hotly. Grand Maester Pycelle shook his bald head, making his many chains jiggle. Lord Arryn was a prudent man, but I fear that his grace does not always listen to wise counsel. My royal brother loves tournaments and feasts, Renly Baratheon said, and he loathes what he calls counting coppers. I will speak with his grace, Ned said. This tourney is an extravagance the realm cannot afford. Speak to him as you will, Lord Renly said. We had still best make our plans. Another day, Ned said. He realized he was too short by the look the others had given him. He would have to remember that he wasn't in Winterfell anymore, where his word was law, even if he was first after the king. Forgive me, my lords, he said in a softer tone. I am tired. Let us call a halt for today and resume when we are fresher. He didn't wait for their agreement, just stood and went for the door. Outside, the great caravan of the king was still arriving, wagons and men filling the courtyard. The king himself was still on his way, Ned was told. Since the events transpiring on the Trident, the Starks were riding ahead of the rest of the company, as far away from the Lannisters as it was still polite to do so. King Robert was not to be seen often. Ned heard that he remained in the large wheelhouse, drunk more often than not. Now Robert could still be hours behind, but Ned was fine with that. He only had to look at Sansa's sad face to have his rage awakened against his old friend. Sansa, of course, blamed Arya, often repeating that it should have been Nymeria who died. Arya was grieving her friend, the butcher's boy. Sansa cried often, and Arya was brooding and silent, and Ned was dreaming about going back to Winterfell. Ned walked across the outer yard to the inner bailey, aiming for the Tower of the Hand, when Littlefinger intercepted him. You're going the wrong way, Stark. Come with me. Uneasily, Ned followed him. Littlefinger led him in a different tower, then out to a small courtyard along empty corridors guarded by old suits of armor from the time of the Targaryens. This is not the way to my chambers, Ned said. Did I say it was? I'm leading you to the dungeons to slit your throat and seal your corpse up behind a wall. Littlefinger replied, his voice dripping with sarcasm. We have no time for this, Stark. Your wife awaits. What game are you playing, Littlefinger? Catelyn is at Winterfell, hundreds of leagues from here. Oh, Littlefinger looked at him with amusement. Then it appears someone has managed an astonishing interpretation. For the last time, come or don't come, and I'll keep her for myself. He went down a flight of stairs. Ned followed him, sure that this day will never end. He had little patience for all this secrecy, but he could tell that Littlefinger lived for it. At the bottom of the steps, a heavy ironed oak door stood. Baelish opened it and let Ned through. He found himself in the open, on a rocky ledge above the river. We're outside the castle, Ned said. You are a hard man to fool, Stark, Littlefinger smirked. Was it the sun that gave it away, or the sky? Follow me. There are niches cut in the rock. Try not to fall to your death. Catelyn would never understand. And he was off, descending on the cliffside like a monkey. Ned needed a moment to see the path, then followed Littlefinger. The river was a long way down, and Ned tried not to look in its direction. By the time he reached the bottom, Littlefinger was already finishing an apple. You are growing old and slow, Stark, he said, throwing the core into the water. No matter, we ride the rest of the way. 2 horses were waiting. Ned rode after Littlefinger as they skirted the walls and entered back into the city. At last Lord Baelish stopped his horse in front of a rickety building, 3 stories tall, with lamplight in the windows. Music and laughter drifted out onto the street. Beside the door hung a leaded red glass. Ned jumped off his horse angrily. "A brothel," he said, as he grabbed Littlefinger and turned him around. "You've brought me all this way to take me to a brothel." "Your wife is inside," Littlefinger said. This crossed a line. "Brandon was too kind to you," Ned said as he slammed the small man back against a wall. The point of his dagger appears under Littlefinger's chin. "My lord, no!" an urgent voice called out. "He speaks the truth." Footsteps from behind. Ned turned, the dagger at the ready. But there was only an old man, his hair white, hurrying towards them. "This is no business of yours," Ned began. Then, suddenly, he recognized the man and lowered his blade. "Sir Roderick?" Roderick Hassel nodded. "Your lady awaits you upstairs." Ned was now baffled. "Catelyn is truly here. This is not some strange jape of Littlefinger's." He put his dagger away. "Would that if it were, Stark," Littlefinger said. "Follow me, and try to look a shade more lecherous and a shade less like the king's hand. It would not do to have you recognized. Perhaps you could fondle a breast or two, just in passing." Inside, a fat woman was singing as pretty young girls were working hard for their coins, wearing as little silk as possible. Nobody looked at Ned and his companion twice. Sir Roderick stayed behind as they entered a room. Here, Catelyn Stark was waiting for Ned. She hugged him fiercely. "My lady," Ned whispered in wonderment. "Oh, very good," said Littlefinger, closing the door. "You recognized her." "I feared you'd never come, my lord," she whispered, burying her face into his chest. "Peter has been bringing me reports. He told me of your troubles with Arya and the young prince. How are my girls?" "Both in mourning and full of anger," he told her. "Cat, I do not understand. What are you doing in King's Landing?" "What's happened?" Ned asked his wife. "Is it Bran? Is he—" He could not bring himself to say the word dead. "It is Bran, but not as you think," Catelyn said. Ned was confused. "Then how? Why are you here, my love? What is this place?" "Just what it appears," Littlefinger said, sitting on the windowsill. "A brothel. Can you think of a less likely place to find a Catelyn Tully?" He smiled. "As it chances, I own this particular establishment, so arrangements were easily made. I am most anxious to keep the Lannisters from learning that Cat is here in King's Landing." "Why?" Ned asked. But just then, he finally saw her hand. The thick red scarf, the awkward way she held her fingers. "You've been hurt." He examined her hands closely. "Gods, those are deep cuts. A gash from a sword, or how did this happen, my lady?" Catelyn pulled a dagger under her cloak, giving it to Ned. This blade was sent to open Bran's throat and spill his life's blood. "But who? Why would—" She put a finger to his lips. "Let me tell it all, my love. It will go faster that way. Listen." Ned listened as Catelyn told her story, starting with the fire in the library and ending with Varys and Littlefinger. When she finished, Ned sat down in a daze, still clutching the dagger. The direwolf saved Bran, he thought dimly. Just as Jon said, his children were meant to have the wolves, and now he had killed the one Sansa chose. Was it the gods who sent them to his children? Did he offend them by killing Lady? Ned focused on the dagger instead. "The imp's dagger," he repeated. It made little sense to him. Angrily, he slammed the dragonbone dagger into the table. Why should Tyrion Lannister want Bran dead? The boy has never done him harm. "Do you Starks have naught but snow between your ears?" Littlefinger asked. The imp would never have acted alone. Ned got on his feet and started pacing. If the Queen had a role in this, or, gods forbid, the King himself, no, I will not believe that. But he remembered the ride amongst the barrows and Robert talking about sending a knife after the hiding Targaryen princess. Then he thought about Rhaegar's son, only a babe, his head bashed in, and Robert again turning away from the begging of Sansa. Most likely the king did not know, Littlefinger said. It would not be the first time. Our good Robert is practiced at closing his eyes to things he would rather not see. Ned didn't know what to say to that. He saw the butcher's boy's face now, dead and cut almost in half, a child, and yet Robert had not said a word. A headache was starting up behind Ned's eyes as Littlefinger took the knife out of the table's wood. The accusation is treason either way. Accuse the king and you will dance with ill and pain before the words are out of your mouth. The queen, if you can find proof, and if you can make Robert listen, then perhaps— We have proof, Ned said. We have the dagger. This— Littlefinger flipped the blade casually. A sweet piece of steel, but it cuts two ways, my lords. The imp will no doubt swear the blade was lost or stolen while he was at Winterfell, and with his hireling dead, who was there to give him the lie? He tossed the knife to Ned. My counsel is to drop that in the river and forget that it was ever forged. Ned looked at him coldly. Lord Baelish, I am a Stark of Winterfell. My son lies crippled, perhaps dying. He would be dead, and Catelyn with him but for a wolf pup we found in the snow. If you truly believe I could forget that, you are as big a fool now as when you took up sword against my brother. A fool I may be, Stark, yet I'm still here, while your brother has been mouldering in his frozen grave for some 14 years now. If you are so eager to moulder beside him, far be it from me to dissuade you, but I would rather not be included in the party, thank you very much. You would be the last man I would willingly include in any party, Lord Baelish. You wound me deeply. Littlefinger placed a hand over his heart. For my part, I always found you Starks a tiresome lot, but Cat seems to have become attached to you for reasons I cannot comprehend. I shall try to keep you alive for her sake. A fool's task, admittedly, but I could never refuse your wife anything. I told Peter our suspicions about Jon Arryn's death, Catelyn said. He has promised to help you find the truth. Ned was not happy about that, but he couldn't deny that they needed help, and Littlefinger was almost like a brother to Cat, at least once. He would have to make common cause with the man, even if he didn't like him. Very well, he said, putting the dagger into his belt. You spoke of Varys. Does the eunuch know all of it? Not from my lips, Catelyn said. You did not wed a fool, Eddard Stark, but Varys has ways of learning things that no man could know. He has some dark art, Ned, I swear it. He has spies, that is well known, Ned said dismissive. It is more than that, Catelyn said. Sir Roderick spoke to Sir Aaron Santagar in all secrecy, yet somehow the spider knew of their conversation. I fear that man. Littlefinger smiled. Leave Lord Varys to me, sweet lady. If you'll permit me a small obscenity, and where better for it, I hold the man's balls in the palm of my hand. He cupped his fingers as if holding them, or would if he were a man or had any balls. You see, if the pie is opened, the birds begin to sing, and Varys would not like that. Were I you, I would worry more about the Lannisters and less about the eunuch. Ned was well aware of that without Littlefinger telling him. He thought about Cersei Lannister saying they had a wolf to punish in a quiet but merciless voice. The cleaved boy, Micah, Jon Arryn, Bran, could all of that have been Cersei? My lady, he said, turning to Catelyn, there is nothing more you can do here. I want you to return to Winterfell at once. If there was one assassin, there could be others. Whoever ordered Bran's death will learn soon enough that the boy still lives. I had hoped to see the girls, Catelyn said. That would be most unwise, Littlefinger put in. The Red Keep is full of curious eyes, and children talk. He speaks truly, my love, Ned told her. He embraced her. Take Sir Roderick and ride for Winterfell. I will watch over the girls. Go home to our sons and keep them safe. As you say, my lord. Catelyn kissed his face, her maimed fingers holding onto him gravely. Would the lord and lady like the use of a bedchamber? Asked Littlefinger. I should warn you, Stark, we usually charge for that sort of thing around here. A moment alone, that's all I ask, Catelyn said. Very well, Littlefinger walked to the door. Don't be too long, it is past time the Hand and I return to the castle before our absence is noted. Catelyn went to him and took his hand. I will not forget the help you gave me, Peter. When your men came for me, I did not know whether they were taking me to a friend or an enemy. I have found a brother I'd thought lost." Peter Baelish smiled. "I am desperately sentimental, sweet lady. Best not tell anyone. I have spent years convincing the court that I am wicked and cruel, and I should hate to see all that hard work go for naught." Ned thought him to be lying, but he still said, "You have my thanks as well, Lord Baelish." "Oh, now there's a treasure," Littlefinger said, leaving the room. When the door had closed behind him, Ned turned back to Catelyn. "Once you are home, send word to Helman Talhart and Galbert Glovier under my seal. They are to raise 200 bowmen each and fortify Moat Catelyn. 200 determined archers can hold the neck against an army. Instruct Lord Manderley that he is to strengthen and repair all his defences at White Harbour. And see that they are well manned, and from this day on I want a careful watch kept over Theon Greyjoy. If there is war, we shall have sore need of his father's fleet." "War?" Lady Stark's face was scared. "It will not come to that," Ned promised her, praying it was true. He put his arms around her again. The Lannisters are merciless in the face of weakness, as Aerys Targaryen learned to his sorrow, but they would not dare attack the north without all the power of the realm behind them. And that they shall not have. I must play out this fool's masquerade, as if nothing is amiss. Remember why I came here, my love. If I find proof that the Lannisters murdered Jon Arryn." Catelyn was trembling, clinging to him. "If," she said. "What then, my love?" "All justice flows from the king," he told her. "When I know the truth, I must go to Robert. And hope that he's still the man I once knew," he added silently. And this is where Eddard IV ends. Now, when asked to work with Littlefinger, Ned thinks to himself it would not be the first time that Ned had been forced to make common cause with a man he despised. Fans have tried to speculate who this might be and if it might be connected to the Tower of Joy. However, it could really be anyone from Roose Bolton to the Lannisters, but it would be interesting if it was connected to Lyanna's "Promise me, Ned" moment. This chapter also introduces Littlefinger's debt scheme, where we think he has deliberately bankrupted the realm and planned for the Iron Bank of Bravos to call in all their outstanding loans so Littlefinger can bail out proud lords like the Wainswoods to secure valuable hostages like Harry the Heir in A Feast for Crows. Because Robert can't possibly be responsible for the amount of debt the Crown has accumulated. The Hand's Tourney, which is stated to be an extravagant expense, costs 100,000 gold dragons, but the Crown is in debt for 6 million dragons. In order to get 6 million in debt in 15 years, Robert would have had to have a Hand's Tourney level expense every 3 months. And that's assuming the Crown has no incomes. We don't know how much those incomes are, but we know that the Crown wasn't in debt when Robert took over. Ned says, "Aerys left a treasury flowing with gold." And revenues have grown massively in the intervening 15 years. Tywin says, "Crown incomes are now 10 times higher than they were under Aerys. In Tyrion IV, A Storm of Swords." So this begs the question, where did all the money go? Well, the most likely answer is that immediately after Robert's rebellion, there were a lot of expenses, like rebuilding King's Landing that did strain the Crown's resources. Therefore, to solve the problem, Jon Arryn brought in Littlefinger, who he knew was good with money. Once master of coin though, Littlefinger rapidly realized 3 things. First, none of the people above him know or care anything about money as long as they have enough of it. Second, if he solves the Crown's financial problems, he becomes disposable. Third, if he makes the Crown's finances look desperate, but still always manages to have enough money, he'll look like an indispensable genius. So, his goal to ensure that the Crown's finances are in a state of perpetual crisis, he deliberately borrows money at exorbitant rates to stick the Crown with the interest payments. He increases the Crown's payroll as much as possible and auctions off officers, and of course, he steals as much as possible through overcharging, fake identities, double billing, and anything else he can think of. The end result is that the Crown is broke. Littlefinger has accumulated a fortune worth of millions of dragons and no one is the wiser. This is supported by Jaime I in A Feast for Crows, where we learn the Crown is employing 20 turnkeys, 6 under-jailers, a chief under-jailer, a jailer, and a King's Justice to guard 6 prisoners. Varys may have known what Littlefinger was doing, but stayed out of it because it fell into his plans to put his chosen Targaryen on the Iron Throne. Here are some of the other differences between the book and the TV show. Ned's dialogue in the show is much more engaging. In the books, Lord Commander Barristan Selmy of the Kingsguard is present at the small council meeting, but he is absent in the show. This occurred because the writers didn't want Barristan to know that Jorah was a spy. There is also an additional scene in King's Landing where Eddard confronts Jaime at the Iron Throne. Jaime describes the scene when he stabbed Aerys II Targaryen. In the books, the badge of the hand that Eddard uses is a clasp at the throat that clutches the cloak together. In the show, it is a brooch on the chest. The saying about the hand has changed as well. In the book, the saying is, "The king eats, the hand takes the shit." In the show, the saying is, "The king shits and the hand wipes." In the show, Jaime says 500 knights watched both Brandon and Rickard Stark be burned alive. But in Catelyn VII, in A Clash of Kings, we only learn of Jaime and Gerald Hightower being present for Aerys' trial by fire. Tyrion III. "Are you certain that you must leave us so soon?" the Lord Commander asked him. "Past certain, Lord Commander," Tyrion replied. "My brother Jaime will be wondering what has become of me. He may decide that you have convinced me to take the black." "Would that I could." Mormon picked up a crab claw and followed it with his fingers. Even in his old age, the man was strong as a bear. "You're a cunning man, Tyrion. We have need of men of your sort on the wall." Tyrion grinned. "Then I shall scour the 7 kingdoms for dwarfs and ship them all to you, Lord Mormont." They laughed. Then Lord Mormont reached for another crab leg. The crabs had arrived that morning, fresh and packed in snow. Sir Alliser, however, didn't find the remark funny. "Lannister mocks us." "Only you, Sir Alliser," Tyrion said. There was another laughter around the table, but a nervous one this time. Thorne looked at Tyrion with loathing in his black eyes. "You have a bold tongue for someone who is less than half a man. Perhaps you and I should visit the yard together." "Why?" asked Tyrion. "The crabs are here." This brought more laughter. Sir Alliser got on his feet, mouth pressed thin. "Come and make your japes with steel in your hand." Tyrion looked pointedly at his right hand. "Why, I have steel in my hand, Sir Alliser, although it appears to be a crab fork. Shall we duel?" He leapt on his chair, poking towards the knight with his fork. Roaring laughter filled the room. The Lord Commander was laughing so hard that bits of crab were flying from his mouth. Even his raven cawed, "Duel! Duel! Duel!" Sir Alliser Thorne left the room without a word. Lord Mormont still gasping, and Tyrion hit him on the back. "To the victor goes the spoils," he called out. "I claim Thorne's share of the crabs." "You are a wicked man to provoke our Sir Alliser so," Lord Mormont scolded him. Tyrion sat back down and drank some wine. "If a man paints a target on his chest, you should expect that sooner or later someone will loose an arrow at him. I have seen dead men with more humour than your Sir Alliser." "Not so," the Lord Steward, Bowen Marsh said. "You ought to hear the droll names he gives the lads he trains." Tyrion had heard a few of those droll names. "I'll wager the lads have a few names for him as well," he said. "Chip the ice off your eyes, my good lords. Sir Alliser Thorne should be mucking out your stables, not drilling your young warriors." "The Watch has no shortage of stable boys," Lord Mormont grumbled. "That seems to be all they send us these days. Stable boys and sneak thieves and arras. Sir Alliser is an anointed knight, one of the few to take the black since I have been Lord Commander. He fought bravely at King's Landing." "On the wrong side," Sir Jeremy Riker said, dryly. I ought to know. I was there on the battlements beside him. Tywin Lannister gave us a splendid choice. Take the black, or see our heads on spikes before evenfall. No offense intended, Tyrion. None taken, Sir Jaffrey. My father is very fond of spiked heads, especially those of people who have annoyed him in some fashion. And a face as noble as yours, well, no doubt he saw you decorating the city wall above the King's Gate. I think you would have looked very striking up there. Thank you, Sir Jeremy replied, with a smile. Mormont cleared his throat. Sometimes I fear Sir Alliser saw you true, Tyrion. You do mock us, and our noble purpose here. Tyrion shrugged. We all need to be mocked from time to time, Lord Mormont, lest we start to take ourselves too seriously. More wine, please. He raised his cup. Riker filled it while Marsh said, You have a great thirst for a small man. Oh, I think that Lord Tyrion is quite a large man. This was Maester Aemon, who sat at the far end of the table. Quietly though he spoke, the officers of the Night's Watch listened intently. I think he is a giant come among us, here at the end of the world. Tyrion answered gently. I've been called many things, my lord, but giant is seldom one of them. Nonetheless, Maester Aemon said, his blind eyes on Tyrion, I think it's true. For the first time in his life, Tyrion didn't know what to say. He bowed his head and managed. You are too kind, Maester Aemon. The old man smiled. He was very small and wrinkled and without any hair, so shrunken that the collar around his neck was loose. I have been called many things, my lord, he said, but kind is seldom one of them. Tyrion laughed. Later, once the feast was done and the others had left, Tyrion was sitting with the Lord Commander, sipping mulled spirits. The King's Road can be perilous this far north, the Lord Commander told him. I have Jaik and Morik, Tyrion said, and Yoren is riding south again. Yoren is only one man. The Watch shall escort you as far as Winterfell, Mormont said, his tone making it clear that he accepted no argument. 3 men should be sufficient. If you insist, my lord, Tyrion said, you might send young Snow. He would be glad for a chance to see his brothers. Mormont frowned. Snow? Oh, the Stark bastard. I think not. The young ones need to forget the lives they left behind, their brothers and mothers and all that. A visit home would only stir up feelings best left alone. I know these things. My own blood kin. My sister Mage rules Bear Island now, since my son's dishonor. I have nieces I have never seen. He took a swallow. Besides, Jon Snow was only a boy. You shall have 3 strong swords to keep you safe. I am touched by your concern, Lord Mormont. The drink was strong, but not so strong that Tyrion wouldn't realize the Lord Commander was about to ask for a favor. I hope I can repay your kindness. You can, Mormont said bluntly. Your sister sits beside the king, your brother is a great knight, and your father the most powerful lord in the 7 kingdoms. Speak to them for us. Tell them of our need here. You have seen for yourself, my lord. The Night's Watch is dying. Our strength is less than 1,000 now. 600 here, 200 in the Shadow Tower, even fewer at Eastwatch, and a scant third of those fighting men. The wall is 100 leagues long. Think on that. Should an attack come, I have 3 men to defend each mile of wall. 3 1/3, Tyrion said with a yawn. Lord Mormont didn't seem to hear him. I sent Benjen Stark to search for Yoren Royce's son, lost on his first ranging. The Royce boy was green as summer grass, yet he insisted on the honor of his own command, saying it was his due as a knight. I did not wish to offend his lord father, so I yielded. I sent him out with 2 men I deemed as good as any in the Watch. More fool I. Fool, the raven agreed. Tyrion glanced up at it as the bird was ruffling its wings. Fool, it called again. Tyrion suspected Mormont would not be happy if he wrought the creature's neck. What a shame. The old man scarcely noticed the raven too. Garrod was near as old as I am and longer on the wall, he went on, yet it would seem he forswore himself and fled. I should never have believed it, not of him, but Lord Eddard sent me his head from Winterfell. Of Royce there is no word. 1 deserter and 2 lost men, and now Ben Stark has 2 gone missing. He sighed deeply. Who am I to send searching after him? In 2 years I will be 70. Too old and too weary for the burden I bear. Yet if I set it down, who will pick it up? Alliser Thorne? Bowen Marsh? I would have to be as blind as Maester Aemon not to see what they are. The Night's Watch has become an army of sullen boys and tired old men. Apart from the men at my table tonight, I have perhaps 20 who can read, and even fewer who can think or plan or lead. Once the Watch spent its summers building, and each Lord Commander raised the wall higher than he found it. Now it is all we can do to stay alive. Tyrion realized that Lord Mormont believed what he was saying. The dwarf felt sorry for him. Mormont spent most of his life on the wall, and now he was trying to convince not only himself, but the world that it wasn't for nothing. I promise the king will hear of your need, Tyrion said gravely. And I will speak to my father and my brother Jaime as well. He meant it, but he knew Robert will ignore him. His father will think he was losing his mind, and Jaime, well, he would just laugh. You are a young man, Tyrion, Mormont said. How many winters have you seen? He shrugged. 8? 9? I misremember. And all of them short. As you say, my lord. Though he had been born in the middle of winter, one that lasted for 3 years, his earliest memories took place in spring. When I was a boy, it was said that a long summer always meant a long winter to come. This summer has lasted 9 years, Tyrion, and a 10th will soon be upon us. Think on that. When I was a boy, Tyrion replied, my wet nurse told me that one day, if men were good, the gods would give the world a summer without ending. Perhaps we've been better than we thought, and the great summer is finally at hand. He grinned. The Lord Commander didn't smile back. You are not fool enough to believe that, my lord. Already the days grow shorter. There can be no mistake. Aemon has had letters from the Citadel, findings in accord with his own. The end of summer stares us in the face. Mormont reached out and took Tyrion's hand. You must make them understand. I tell you, my lord, the darkness is coming. There are wild things in the woods, direwolves and mammoths and snow bears the size of orcas, and I have seen darker shapes in my dreams. In your dreams, Tyrion echoed, wanting another drink. Lord Mormont ignored or just didn't hear the edge in his voice. The fisher folk near Eastwatch have glimpsed white walkers on the shore. This was too much for Tyrion. The fisher folk of Lannisport often glimpse merlings. Denny's Mallister writes that the mountain people are moving south, slipping past the Shadow Tower in numbers greater than ever before. They are running, my lord. But running from what? Lord Mormont looked out of the window and into the night. These are old bones, Lannister, but they have never felt a chill like this. Tell the king what I say, I pray you. Winter is coming, and when the long night falls, only the Night's Watch will stand between the realm and the darkness that sweeps from the north. The gods help us all if we are not ready. The gods help me if I do not get some sleep tonight. Yoren is determined to ride at first light. Tyrion got to his feet, sleepy and tired. I thank you for all the courtesies you have done me, Lord Mormont. Tell them, Tyrion. Tell them and make them believe. That is all the thanks I need. The Lord Commander whistled and the raven came flying, landing on his shoulder. The old man gave it some corn as Tyrion left. The courtyard was bitterly cold. He wrapped his furs around himself more tightly and nodded to the poor bastard standing guard in front of the commander's keep. He hurried across the yard towards the king's tower. His breaths hung in the air in front of his face, and snow was crunching under his boots. He hoped that Morag didn't forget to warm his bed with hot bricks from the fire. Behind the king's tower emerged the wall, glistening and mysterious in the moonlight. Tyrion stopped to stare at it, even though his legs were aching from the cold. Out of nowhere, a strong urge got him, longing to look over the wall one last time. This might very well be the last chance. Tomorrow, he will return home, and he didn't see any reason to visit this place ever again. Though a warm bed was waiting for him in the king's tower, he walked past it towards the wall. There was a wooden staircase, held up by beams long ago frozen into the wall itself. Switching back and forth at every landing, it looked like a bolt of lightning. Though he had been assured it was safe, Tyrion didn't even contemplate it, his legs cramping already just from the thought. Instead, he went for the iron cage beside the stairs, climbed in and yanked a rope that was attached to a bell far above his head. It was a long wait in the cage, long enough for Tyrion to change his mind about the whole thing. But just as he decided to step out, the cage finally started to rise. At first, his ascent was slow and jerky, but it became more smooth the higher he emerged. Even through his gloves, the bars were cold. He could see into his room, and there was a fire all right. But Lord Mormont's chamber was dark. He was smarter than Tyrion and went to bed instead of freezing in a cage. Soon he was above the towers. From up, they looked old and crumbling. Tyrion could see further now, a village half a league away, woods, ice. The hills behind them eternally covered in snow. Finally, he heard a thick voice. "Seven hells, it's the dwarf!" And the cage stopped, just below the rim of the wall. "Bring him in, damn it!" With much groaning and grunting, they pulled him up and over the wall. Tyrion waited for a moment before he opened the door, jumping out of the cage onto the ice. Two men wrapped in heavy furs were on the top, one still occupied with the winch, the other holding the cage straight. "And what will you be wanting this time of night?" the one by the winch asked. "A last look." The men glanced at one another. "Look all you want," the other one said. "Just have a care you don't fall off, little man. The old bear would have our hides." Beside the crane, there was a small wooden shack, and as the men went back inside, Tyrion felt a gust of warmth from their brazier. He then was alone on the wall. The cold was intense, and the wind was dragging his clothes. The top of the wall was wider than the King's Road at some places, so Tyrion wasn't scared of falling, even though the very ground was slick ice. The Brothers of the Watch often spread crushed stones on the top, but as they walked, this sunk into the ice. Tyrion looked left and right, watching the vast white road of the wall, unending and surrounded by black nothing. With no reasoning he could tell, he started to walk left, his boots crunching on gravel. His bare cheeks were freezing and his bad leg was cramping as he walked, but walk he did. Ahead of him, the white ribbon of the wall rose with the mountains. He walked past a huge catapult, its base melted into the wall. It was long since out of order he could see, with the arm taken off and never replaced. From behind the broken catapult, a muffled voice called out. "Who goes there? Halt!" Tyrion stopped. "If I halt too long, I'll freeze in place, Jon," he said as a four-legged shape came out of the darkness sniffing at his furs. "Hello, ghost." Jon Snow looked bigger with the many layers of leathers and fur he wore. He had his hood pulled up. "Lannister," he said, freeing his mouth from a covering scarf. "This is the last place I would have expected to see you." He was armed with a tall and heavy spear and a sword on his side. He had a great horn hanging in his neck. "This is the last place I would have expected to be seen," Tyrion admitted. "I was captured by a whim. If I touch Ghost, will he chew my hand off?" "Not with me here," Jon promised. Tyrion gently scratched the wolf behind the ear. Red eyes watched him. The direwolf had grown, and was as high as Tyrion's chest now. A little more time, and he would be looking up at Ghost. "What are you doing up here tonight?" he asked, "besides freezing your manhood off?" "I have drawn night guard," Jon said. "Again. Sir Alliser has kindly arranged for the Watch Commander to take a special interest in me. He seems to think that if they keep me awake half the night, I'll fall asleep during morning drill. So far, I have disappointed him." Tyrion grinned. "And has Ghost learned to juggle yet?" "No," said Jon, smiling. "But Gren held his own against Hadler this morning, and Pip is no longer dropping his sword quite so often as he did. Piper is his real name, the small boy with the large ears. He saw me working with Gren and asked for help. Thorne had never even shown him the proper way to grip a sword." He turned to look north. "I have a mile of wall to guard. Will you walk with me?" "If you walk slowly," Tyrion said. "The Watch Commander tells me I must walk, to keep my blood from freezing, but he never said how fast." They set off, Ghost following Jon like a white shadow. "I leave on the morrow," Tyrion said. "I know." Jon sounded sad. "I plan to stop at Winterfell on the way south. If there is any message that you would like me to deliver, tell Robb that I'm going to command the Night's Watch and keep him safe, so he might as well take up needlework with the girls and have Mikken melt down his sword for horseshoes." "Your brother is bigger than me," Tyrion laughed. "I decline to deliver any message that might get me killed." "Rickon will ask when I'm coming home. Try to explain where I've gone, if you can. Tell him he can have all my things while I'm away. He'll like that." People had some big expectations of him today, Tyrion thought. "You could put all this in a letter, you know." Rickon can't read yet. "Bran," he stopped suddenly. "I don't know what message to send to Bran. Help him, Tyrion." "What help could I give him? I am no maester to ease his pain. I have no spells to give him back his legs." "You gave me help when I needed it," Jon Snow said. "I gave you nothing," Tyrion said. "Words. Then give your words to Bran too." "You're asking a lame man to teach a cripple how to dance," Tyrion said. "However sincere the lesson, the result is likely to be grotesque. Still, I know what it is to love a brother, Lord Snow. I will give Bran whatever small help is in my power. Thank you, my Lord of Lannister." He pulled off his glove and offered his bare hand. "Friend." Tyrion, to his own surprise, felt touched by this. "Most of my kin are bastards, but you're the first I've had to friend." Tyrion removed his glove too, and clasped hands with Jon Snow. The boy was strong. After they shook, Jon walked up to the eastern parapet. The wall fell sharply, giving way to darkness and the wild. Tyrion followed, and they stood together on the edge of the world. The forest came as close as half a mile, the closest the watch would permit it. Looking at the dark forest now, standing in the cold, Tyrion could almost believe that others were walking the trees beyond the wall. His jokes about grumpkins and such suddenly didn't seem funny anymore. "My uncle is out there," Jon Snow said softly, leaning on his spear. "The first night they sent me up here, I thought, Uncle Benjen will ride back tonight, and I'll see him first and blow the horn. He never came though, not that night and any other night." "Give him time," Tyrion said. Far north, a wolf howled, then another, and one more. Ghost listened in silence. "If he doesn't come back," Jon said, "Ghost and I will go find him." He put his hand on the direwolf's head. "I believe you," Tyrion said. And what he only added in his head was, "And who will find you, Jon Snow?" And this is where Tyrion III ends. This chapter teases the idea someone is sending dreams to Mormont. So, if someone is sending dreams to Mormont, could it be Bloodraven? Since we know Bloodraven can enter inside people's dreams and control ravens, which is something that Mormont's Raven is suspected of doing by influencing the events at the Wall. We'll be returning to the idea that Mormont's Raven is subtly influencing the Old Bear and helped facilitate Jon's election to Lord Commander. We believe that Mormont's Raven, Ghost, and Dreams are manipulating events at the Wall. Here's the differences between the book and the HBO TV show. In the show, Yoren is introduced in conversation with Tyrion at the Castle Black rather than in the scene with two as Jon is on his way to the Wall. Benjen also appears in this scene. In the TV series, many of Mormont's lines were given to Maester Aemon in the scene with Tyrion. In the books, Aemon does appear in this scene, but he remains mostly in the background. Sir Alliser is also absent from the scene in the show. Arya II. Lord Eddard was arguing with the council once again. A glance at his face was enough for Arya to see that her father arrived, late as always, to the table. Though the room they ate was called the Small Hall because there was a bigger one named the Great Hall, it was still a large place, able to sit 200 or so people. "My lord," Jory said when father entered. He stood, and the other guards did too. They had a new cloak, grey with a white satin border and a silver hand as a clasp, the mark of the men working for the king's hand. Not a lot of them, admittedly, only 50 or so, leaving most of the benches empty. "Be seated," Lord Eddard said. "I see you have started without me. I am pleased to know that there are still some men of sense in this city." He waved and the meal continued. The servants brought platters of roasted ribs with garlic and herbs. "The talk in the yard is we shall have a tourney, my lord," Jory said. "They say that knights will come from all over the realm to joust and feast in honor of your appointment as Hand of the King." Once again, Arya saw in her father's face that he was not pleased. "Do they also say that this is the last thing in the world I would have wished?" Sansa's eyes opened wide. "A tourney," she breathed. She was sitting as far from Arya as she could without father telling her off about it. "Will we be permitted to go, father?" "You know my feelings, Sansa. It seems I must arrange Robert's games and pretend to be honored for his sake. That does not mean I must subject my daughters to this folly." "Oh, please," Sansa said. "I want to see." Septim Ordain joined in. "Princess Marcilla will be there, my lord, and her younger than Lady Sansa. All the ladies of the court will be expected at a grand event like this, and as the tourney is in your honor, it would look queer if your family did not attend." Father looked upset. "I suppose so. Very well. I shall arrange a place for you, Sansa." He looked at Arya. "For both of you." "I don't care about their stupid tourney," Arya said. Joffrey would be there, she knew, and she hated him. Sansa looked at her. "It will be a splendid event. You shan't be wanted." "Enough, Sansa. More of that, and you will change my mind. I am weary unto death of this endless war you two are fighting. You are sisters. I expect you to behave like sisters. Is that understood?" said father angrily. Sansa nodded. Arya stared at her plate, tears welling in her eyes. She wiped them angrily, adamant on not crying. In the silence, the only sound was the clatter of cutleries. "Pray excuse me," Lord Eddard said. "I find I have a small appetite tonight." He stood and walked out of the hall. Sansa and Jane Poole started to whisper excitedly. Further away, Jory laughed at something, and Hullen started to talk about horseflesh. "Your warhorse now. He may not be the best one for the joust. Not the same thing. Oh no, not the same at all." It was the usual conversation, and Arya heard it 100 times. Nobody was talking to her though, but she didn't mind. If they let her, she'd have eaten alone, in her room. When father dined with King Robert, she sometimes did just that. And sometimes they ate in her father's solar. Just the three of them. Her, Lord Eddard, and Sansa. And at these occasions, Arya missed her brothers more than ever. She missed teasing Bran and seeing Robb smile. Miss Little Rickon, Miss Jon, and how they always finished their sentences together. Yet all she had was Sansa, and her sister wouldn't even talk to her unless their father told her to. In Winterfell, they ate in the Great Hall often. Lord Eddard always said that a lord needed to know his men, and eating with them was a way to do that. "Know the men who follow you," she heard him tell Robb once, "and let them know you. Don't ask your men to die for a stranger." He would have an extra seat at his own table. Father had, and every evening a different man would join him. If it was Vayon Poole, the conversation was about coppers and bread stores, household things. If it was Mikken, they talked about armor and swords and how to forge them. Hullen, horses, Septon Shale, books. Even old Nan was allowed there, telling her stories. This was Arya's favorite pastime, just sitting there and listening to them. She loved listening to the others too, on the long benches, the tough free riders, polite knights, brave squires, grim old men-at-arms. Arya often threw snowballs at them or stole pies from the kitchen for them. She always played games with them or their wives. Fat Tom always called her Arya Underfoot, which she preferred than Arya Horseface. But that was Winterfell, now far away, and here everything was different. Arya hated here, at King's Landing, and even hated the voices of the men she used to love to listen to. She thought they were her friends, but that was a lie. It was bad enough that they let the Queen kill Lady, but then the Hound had given Micah back to his father in a bag, cut to pieces, and nobody said anything. Not even the always bold Harwin drew his sword. Not even Jory, the captain of the guard. Not even father. He was my friend, Arya whispered. Nobody heard her. The ribs on her plate were untouched and cold. Arya felt ill just to look at it. She got on her feet. "Pray, where do you think you are going, young lady?" Septa Mordane asked. "I'm not hungry." Arya forced politeness into her voice. "May I be excused, please?" "You may not," the Septa said. "You have scarcely touched your food. You will sit down and clean your plate." "You clean it!" Arya bolted for the door, surrounded by laughter, and Septa Mordane called after her, voice rising higher and higher. Fat Tom was guarding the door to the Tower of the Hand. He blinked surprised as Arya rushed towards him, followed by the Septa's cry. "Here now, little one. Hold on," he started to say, reaching. Arya slipped past him. Her room was the only place in King's Landing Arya liked, especially the massive dark oak door of it, with the black iron bands and the heavy crossbar. They kept out everyone, kept out Fat Tom and Sansa and Septa Mordane, and even the Hound. When the bar was in place, Arya finally felt safe enough to cry. She sat at the window seat, sniffing and hating everything, herself included. It was her fault what had happened. Sansa and Jean agreed. Fat Tom knocked on the door. "Arya girl, what's wrong?" he called out. "You in there?" "No," she shouted. The knocking stopped and Fat Tom walked away. An easy man to fool, Arya thought. Arya opened her chest at the end of her bed. She angrily pulled out her clothes, throwing them onto the floor. What she was interested was at the bottom of the chest. Finally, she found it and lifted gently. The thin blade hissed out of its sheath. Needle. It was all her fault. If she never asked Micah to play swords with her. The pounding on the door restarted. "Arya Stark, you open this door at once, do you hear me?" She wheeled around, sword in her hand. "You better not come in here," she warned and slashed at the air. "The Hand will hear of this," Septa Mordane raged. "I don't care," Arya screamed. "Go away. You will rule this insolent behavior, young lady. I promise you that." Arya didn't answer, and eventually the Septa walked away. She sat back on the windowsill, sword in hand, and looked at the courtyard below. If only she could climb like Bran, she could just leave through the window and run away from this place, from Sansa and Septa Mordane and Joffrey. All she would need was some food, a good cloak, and needle. She would find Nymeria near the Trident, and they could return to Winterfell together, or even go to the Wall and join Jon. Arya wished Jon was there. There was another knock on her door, a soft one this time. "Arya," her father's voice called. "Open the door, we need to talk." The girl got up and walked to the door, lifting the crossbar. Father came alone, and he appeared to be sad rather than angry. This only made Arya feel worse. "May I come in?" Arya nodded, feeling ashamed. Father closed the door. "Whose sword is that?" "Mine." Arya had forgotten about Needle. "Give it to me." Hesitantly, she handed the blade over, wondering if she would ever get it back. Lord Eddard hefted the weapon, examining it, even testing the edge with his thumb. "A Bravos blade," he said. "Yet it seems to me that I know this maker's mark. This is Micken's work." Arya just looked away as an answer. Lord Eddard Stark sighed. My 9-year-old daughter is being armed from my own forge, and I know nothing of it. The hand of the king is expected to rule the 7 kingdoms, yet it seems I cannot even rule my own household. How is it that you come to your own sword, Arya? Where did you get this?" Arya bit her lips and remained silent. She wouldn't tell on Jon, not even to father. Eddard waited, then said, "I don't suppose it matters truly." He looked at the thin blade heavily. "This is no toy for children, least of all for a girl. What would Septa Mordane say if she knew you were playing with swords?" "I wasn't playing," Arya insisted. "I hate Septa Mordane." "That's enough." Her father's voice was curt. "The scepter is doing no more than is her duty, though gods know you have made it a struggle for the poor woman. Your mother and I have charged her with the impossible task of making you a lady." "I don't want to be a lady," Arya flared. "I ought to snap this toy across my knee here and now and put an end to this nonsense." "Needle wouldn't break," Arya said defiantly, but her voice betrayed her words. "It has a name, does it?" Her father sighed. "Ah, Arya, you have a wildness in you, child. The wolf's blood, my father used to call it. Lyanna had a touch of it, and my brother Brandon, more than a touch. It brought them both to an early grave." There was sadness in father's voice. He rarely talked about his father or his siblings. They all died before Arya was born. "Lyanna might have carried a sword, if my lord father had allowed it. You remind me of her sometimes. You even look like her." "Lyanna was beautiful," Arya objected. "Everybody said so, and nobody has ever called Arya beautiful." "She was," Eddard Stark agreed, "beautiful and willful, and dead before her time." He lifted the sword, held it out. "Arya, what did you think to do with this needle? Who did you hope to skewer? Your sister, Septa Mordane? Do you know the first thing about sword fighting?" She remembered the lesson Jon had given her before parting. "Stick them with the pointy end," she blurted out. His father snorted with laughter. "That is the essence of it, I suppose." Arya wanted to explain it to her father. "I was trying to learn, but..." Her eyes filled with tears. "I asked Micah to practice with me." Grief fell on her and she turned away. "I asked him," she cried. "It was my fault. It was me." Lord Eddard hugged her. She sobbed in his arms. "No, sweet one," he murmured. "Grieve for your friend, but never blame yourself. You did not kill the butcher's boy. That murder lies at the Hound's door, him and the cruel woman he serves." "I hate them," Arya whispered, red-faced, sniffing. "The Hound and the Queen and the King and Prince Joffrey. I hate all of them. Joffrey lied. It wasn't the way he said. I hate Sansa too. She did remember. She just lied so Joffrey would like her." "We all lie," her father said. "Or do you truly think I believe that Nymeria ran off?" Arya blushed. "Jory promised not to tell." "Jory kept his word," her father said with a smile. "There are some things I do not need to be told. Even a blind man could see that the wolf would never have left you willingly." "We had to throw rocks," she said miserably. "I told her to run, to be free, but I didn't want her anymore. There were other wolves for her to play with. We heard them howling, and Jory said the woods were full of game, so she'd have deer to hunt. Only she kept following, and finally we had to throw rocks. I hit her twice. She whined and looked at me, and I felt so ashamed. But it was right, wasn't it? The Queen would have killed her." "It was right," her father said, "and even the lie was not without honor." He had put the sword down to hug her, but now he picked it up again. He walked to the window and looked out. After a while, he turned back, his eyes thoughtful. As he sat, he laid Needle across his lap. "Arya, sit down. I need to try and explain some things to you." She obeyed, lowering herself onto her bed anxiously. "You are too young to be burdened with all my cares," he told her. "But you are also a Stark of Winterfell. You know our words." "Winter is coming," Arya whispered. "The hard, cruel times," her father said. "We tested them on the Trident child, and when Bran fell. You were born in the long summer, sweet one. You've never known anything else, but now the winter is truly coming. Remember the sigil of our house, Arya. The direwolf," she said, thinking of Nymeria. Now she felt scared. "Let me tell you something about wolves, child. When the snows fall and the white winds blow, The lone wolf dies, but the pack survives. Summer is the time for squabbles. In winter, we must protect one another, keep each other warm, share our strengths. So, if you must hate, Arya, hate those who would truly do us harm. Septa Mordane is a good woman, and Sansa is your sister. You may be as different as the sun and the moon, but the same blood flows through both your hearts. You need her as she needs you, and I need both of you. Gods help me. His tired voice made Arya sad. I don't hate Sansa, she told him. Not truly. She wasn't sure if that was true. I do not mean to frighten you, but neither will I lie to you. We have come to a dangerous place, child. This is not Winterfell. We have enemies who mean us ill. We cannot fight a war among ourselves. This willfulness of yours, the running off, the angry words, the disobedience. At home, these were only the summer games of a child. Here and now, with winter soon upon us, that is a different matter. It is time to begin growing up. I will, Arya vowed. She felt immense love for her father now. I can be strong too. I can be as strong as Robb. Father held out needle to her, hilt first. Here. She looked at the sword, surprised. She was reluctant to take it, half expecting it to be snatched away. But then father said, "Go on, it's yours." And she took it in her hand. I can keep it, she said. For true? For true, he smiled. If I took it away, no doubt I'd find a morning star hidden under your pillow within the fortnight. Try not to stab your sister, whatever the provocation. I won't, I promise. Arya held her sword tightly, and her father left the room. The next day, she apologized to Septa Mordane. The scepter was suspicious, but Lord Eddard nodded, confirming Arya's intent. 3 days later, her father's steward sent Arya to the small hall. All the tables were pushed up to the wall. The place appeared to be empty. But then Arya heard an unfamiliar voice. "You are late, boy." A thin man with a bald head and a huge beak of a nose stepped forward. He was holding 2 slender wooden swords. "Tomorrow you will be here at midday." He had a foreign accent, from the Free Cities, Mia, or maybe Bravos. "Who are you?" Arya asked. "I am your dancing master." He threw one of the wooden swords, and Arya grabbed for it but missed. "Tomorrow you will catch it. Now pick it up." Arya grabbed the thing. It was merely a stick, with a handle, pommel, and crossguard. She held it up. The stick was much heavier than Needle. The bold man pursed his lips. "That is not the way, boy. This is not a greatsword that is needing 2 hands to swing it. You will take the blade in 1 hand." "It is too heavy," Arya said. "It is heavy as it needs to be to make you strong, and for the balancing. A hollow inside is filled with lead, just so. 1 hand now is all that is needing." Arya switched hands, now holding it with her left. The man approved. "The left is good. All is reserved. It will make your enemies more awkward. Now you are standing wrong. Turn your body sideways. Yes, so. You are skinny as the shaft of a spear, do you know? That is good too. The target is smaller. Now the grip. Let me see." He stepped closer and looked at her hand, then gently rearranged her fingers. "Just so. Yes. Do not squeeze it so tight. No, the grip must be deft, delicate." "What if I drop it?" Arya said. "The steel must be part of your arm," the bold man told her. "Can you drop part of your arm?" "No. 9 years Syrio Forel was the first sword to the Sea Lord of Bravos. He knows these things. Listen to him, boy." "I am a girl," Arya objected. "Boy, girl," Syrio Forel said. "You are a sword, that is all." He clicked his teeth together. "Just so. That is the grip. You are not holding a battle axe. You are holding a needle," Arya finished for him. "Just so. Now, we will begin the dance. Remember, child, this is not the Iron Dance of Westeros we are learning, the Knight's Dance, hacking and hammering. No. This is the Bravos Dance, the Water Dance, swift and sudden. All men are made of water. Do you know this? When you pierce them, the water leaks out and they die." He took a step backward, raised his own wooden blade. "Now you will try to strike me." And for 4 hours, Arya tried to strike him, until her muscles were sore. Syrio Forel clicked his teeth and instructed her again and again. The next day, the real training started. And this is where Arya II ends. Now, if Arya is similar to Lyanna Stark, like Ned claims, there is also another theory that at 14, Elia Sand behaves in a way similar to Lyanna since they are both described as being half a horse each. Arya is told by Harwin, "You ride like a Northman, my lady. Your aunt was the same." Meanwhile, Elia is described as, "The girl was made for horses, which might be why she often smelled like one," to the despair of her mother. This might explain how Lyanna was able to defeat 3 squires as the Knight of the Laughing Tree, and it was here where she first came into contact with Rhaegar Targaryen. Now, it is often presumed that Rhaegar pursued Lyanna, but what if it was the other way around? Elia is shown to be promiscuous. "I'll let you spank me, though, but first you'll need to tilt with me and knock me off my horse." Arianna catches Elia kissing a man twice her age, so maybe Lyanna seduced Rhaegar, a man much older than herself, and with Ned describing Lyanna as beautiful and willful and dead before her. This would be an interesting subversion of the captured princess trope, with Lyanna being the real agent of her own abduction. Here are the differences between the HBO TV show and book. In the show, the breakfast scene at King's Landing is extended, with Arya stabbing the table. Eddard appears at the breakfast and gives Sansa a doll. Septa Mordane doesn't follow Arya into her bedroom. When Ned talks with Arya in the book, he does not defend Sansa's lies. In the show, Jory did not help Arya throw rocks at Nymeria. Meanwhile, Syrio Forel's appearance is different in the show. He has curly black hair instead of being bald. Daenerys III. "The Dothraki see," Ser Jorah Mormont said as he stopped next to her on the top of the ridge. The plain stretched below endlessly until the horizon and above. Dany saw it as a sea, no hills or mountains, cities or roads, just the green sea, waves rippling gently. "It's so green," she said. "Here and now," Ser Jorah agreed. "You ought to see when it blooms, all dark red. Flowers from horizon to horizon, like a sea of blood. Come the dry season, and the world turns the color of old bronze. And this is only Harana, child. There are 100 kinds of grass out there. Grasses as yellow as lemon and as dark as indigo. Blue grasses and orange grasses and grasses like rainbows. Down in the Shadowlands beyond Ashai, they say there are oceans of ghost grass, taller than a man on horseback, with stalks as pale as milk glass. It murders all other grass and glows in the dark with the spirits of the damned. The Dothraki claim that someday ghost grass will cover the entire world, and then all life will end." Dany shivered. "I don't want to talk about that now," she said. "It's so beautiful here. I don't want to think about everything dying." "As you will, Khaleesi," Ser Jorah said respectfully. There were voices behind her. They weren't alone, only went ahead, and the rest of the group was now catching up. Irri, Dany's handmaid, and the archers could have been centaurs for all the ease with which they rode. But Viserys was stiff on his horse, still not used to the difficult saddles. He was miserable, and probably shouldn't have come. Magister Illaroy warned Viserys that this would happen, and even offered him a stay in his mansion in Pentos. But Viserys insisted on coming. He would not let Drogo out of his sight until the debt was paid. "And if he tries to cheat me, he will learn to his sorrow what it means to wake the dragon," he said now, laying a hand on the hilt of his sword. It was borrowed. Illaroy wished him good luck with that. Dany was not in the mood for her brother's complaints just now. It was too nice a day. Up in the blue sky, a hawk was circling. The sun warmed her face and gentle wind cooled it, and the grass sea rippled. It was beautiful, and Viserys would spoil it all with his whining. "Wait here," Dany told Ser Jorah. "Tell them all to stay. Tell them I command it." The man smiled. He was not a handsome man, with his bullish neck and shoulders, with the coarse black hair covering most of his body except his head. But his smiles always comforted Dany. "You are learning to talk like a queen, Daenerys." "Not a queen," said Dani. "A Khaleesi." She turned her horse and rushed down the ridge. The ground was steep and rocky, but the danger of it just made Dani ride faster, enjoying the rush of her heart. Viserys was always telling her that she was a princess, but she never felt like one until now. She paid for this feeling. The khalasar set out a day after her wedding, heading east to Vaes Dothrak, and in just days Dani wished to die. Sores covered her lower region, oozing blood from the riding. Thighs chafed raw, hands full of blisters, her muscles tight with pain. At the end of the day, her handmaids had to help her dismount. And her knights weren't better. Khal Drogo had ignored her during the day, as he was ignoring her at their wedding too, preferring the company of his warriors. Dani often ate alone, or with Ser Jorah, and after she'd cry herself to sleep. But every night, close to dawn, Khal Drogo would visit her tent and wake her up. As it was customary for a Dothraki, he took her from behind, and Dani was grateful for that. That way, her husband couldn't see her tears and the pain on her face as she muffled her cries with a pillow. Once Drogo was done, he would lay beside her and snore, while Dani stayed up, too much in pain to sleep again. Day after night she suffered, until she thought she could not take it any longer. She decided to kill herself, but that night she had dreamed with the dragons again. Just her and the dragon, no Viserys this time. The scales were wet with blood, and Dani knew it was her blood. The dragon's fire sung to her as she embraced it, and the flames blackened and singed her. The blood in Dani's veins boiled. All that, but no pain, and she felt strong and fierce. The next morning, she realized her pains weren't as bad as they used to be. The gods might have been listening to her prayers. The change was so obvious, her handmaids noticed it. "Khaleesi," Jinqui said, "what's wrong? Are you sick?" "I was," she answered, looking at the dragon's eggs Illyroy had given her as a wedding present. She touched the biggest one, admiring the black and scarlet of it. It was the same as the dragon in her dream. Stone, though it became over the years, the egg felt warm now. She pulled her hand back, not sure if it was still a dream. But from then on, every day she felt better. Her legs were now stronger, her hand hardened with calluses, and her once soft thighs toughened. Khal Drogo ordered Irri to teach Daenerys how to ride like a Dothraki, but her true teacher was her horse. It knew her well, sensed her moods. The horse had no name. The Dothraki felt no attachment and didn't name their animals, so Dani thought of her simply as the Silver. Yet the girl loved the horse more than anything. As pain didn't envelop her mind anymore, Dani started to pay attention to the beauties of the land. She rode with Drogo and his blood riders, head of the column, so she saw everything before the horde spoiled it. Whatever destruction the many horses caused was behind, and ahead the land was majestic. The hills of Norvus passed by, with the many terraced farms and villages, where all the people watched them go with fear in their eyes. Rivers they crossed and camped near blue waterfalls. They strode on the 1,000 years of old Valyrian roads. For a fortnight they travelled the vast forests of Qoar, never seeing the sky over the canopy of leaves. Elk and silver tigers alike fled from the khalasar. Dani's suffering was merely a memory for her by then. She was sore after a long day, but it was a good soreness, and come morning she couldn't wait to get back to the saddle. Even her nights were now pleasure, and though she still cried out when Drogo was behind her, it was not from pain. Once she reached the bottom of the ridge, she stood in the tall grass. She slowed her Silver, trotting into the verdant sea. Alone and at peace. She could never be alone now. Though Khal Drogo only visited her at nights, her handmaids were always around, bathing and feeding her. Just beyond the entrance of her tent were the Blood Riders, and Viserys shadowed her all the time, unwelcomed. She could still hear him now, still up the ridge, his shrill voice ringing as he was yelling at Ser Jorah. Dani rode on. The green enveloped her. Rich air brought the scent of earth and grass, mixed together with horse and her own sweat and the oil in her hair. She smelled like a Dothraki. Dani breathed deep, laughing. Suddenly, she wished to feel the soil under her feet and swung down her horse. She pulled her boots off. Viserys came loudly, his horse rearing as he stopped. "You dare!" he screamed at her. "You give commands to me? To me?" He jumped off his horse, losing his balance at the landing. He was red with anger as he got back to his feet. He grabbed Dani, shaking her hard. "Have you forgotten who you are? Look at you!" Dani didn't need to. Hair oiled, foot bare, clad in Dothraki riding gear, she belonged where she was. Viserys, on the other hand, looked dirty in his city silks and silly ringmail. He was still screaming. "You do not command the dragon. Do you understand? I am the Lord of the Seven Kingdoms. I will not hear orders from some horse lord's. Do you hear me?" He reached under Dani's vest and grabbed her breast painfully. "Do you hear me?" The girl shoved him away, none too gently. Viserys stared at her, purple eyes in disbelief. Never before did she defy him. Rage now rose, and she knew he would hurt her badly. Crack! With a thunderous sound, the whip wrapped around Viserys' throat. He was yanked back and fell into the grass, choking. The Dothraki around were laughing. The one who held the whip, a young man called Jogo, said something in his raspy voice. Dani couldn't understand him, but just then Irri arrived, followed by the rest of the cars. "Jogo asked if you would have him dead, Khaleesi," Irri said. "No," Dani replied. "No." Jogo understood that much. A Dothraki said something and others were laughing again. Irri translated. "Koro thinks you should take an ear to teach him respect." Viserys was now on his knees, trying to pry the coils off the whip of his neck, crying and wheezing. "Tell them I do not wish him harmed," Dani said. Irri translated this too. Jogo pulled his whip away, flooring Viserys in the process. There was a thin line of red blood on his neck. "I warned him what would happen, my lady," Ser Jorah Mormont said. "I told him to stay on the ridge, as you commanded." "I know you did," Dani said, watching Viserys. Her brother was still on the ground, breathing loudly, sobbing. What a pitiful thing, Dani thought. Then again, he has always been pitiful. She has just not noticed it before. Where the fear of him lived in Daenerys Targaryen, now nothing resided. "Take his horse," Dani said. Viserys stared at her. It seemed to surprise him just as much as it did Dani, but she was still saying the words. "Let my brother walk behind us back to the Khalasar." Dothraki people saw those who didn't ride the lowest of all, a man without honor and pride. "Let everyone see him as he is." "No!" Viserys screamed. He looked at Ser Jorah, using the common tongue so the horsemen wouldn't understand. "Hit her, Mormont. Hurt her. Your king commands it. Kill these Dothraki dogs and teach her." The knight looked at Dani, still barefoot, and her brother wearing silks. The girl saw the decision forming on his face. "He shall walk, Khaleesi." As she remounted her silver, Ser Jorah led Viserys' horse away. He gaped at the knight and sat in the dirt. He was now silent, and he didn't move, only stared with hate as the others rode away. Once he was too far to see, Dani started to worry. "Will he find his way back?" she asked Ser Jorah. "Even a man as blind as your brother should be able to follow our trail," he replied. "He is proud. He may be too shamed to come back." Jorah laughed. "Where else should he go? If he cannot find the Khalasar will most surely find him. It is hard to drown in the Dothraki Sea, child." He had a point. The Khalasar was a marching city. Scouts rode ahead and behind to make sure they saw everything. Nothing could cross their path unchecked. This was their land, the Green Plains, and it was now Dani's too. "I hit him," she said, wondering. It already seemed like a dream to her. "Ser Jorah, do you think..." He'll be so angry when he gets back, she shivered. I woke the dragon, didn't I? Ser Jorah snorted. Can you wake the dead, girl? Your brother Rhaegar was the last dragon, and he died on the trident. Viserys is less than the shadow of a snake. His honesty shocked her. Suddenly, everything Dani thought to be true was a question. You swore him your sword. That I did, girl, Ser Jorah said. And if your brother is the shadow of a snake, what does that make his servants? He said bitterly. He is still the true king. He is... Jorah reined his horse to a halt. Truth now. Would you want to see Viserys sit a throne? Dani thought about that. He would not be a very good king, would he? There have been worse, but not many. The knight gestured his mount into motion. Dani followed. Still, she said, the common people are waiting for him. Magister Illyroy says they are sewing dragon banners and praying for Viserys to return from across the narrow sea to free them. The common people pray for rain, healthy children, and a summer that never ends, Ser Jorah told her. It is no matter to them if the High Lords play their Game of Thrones, so long as they are left in peace. He gave a shrug. They never are. Dani rode quietly, turning Ser Jorah's words in her head this way and that. It was startling. The idea that the people could care so little about who sits on the Iron Throne. But the more she thought about it, the more sense it made. What do you pray for, Ser Jorah? She asked Mormont. Home, he said. His voice was filled with longing. I pray for home too, she told him, believing it. Ser Jorah laughed. Look around you then, Khaleesi. But all Dani could see now was King's Landing and the Red Keep. Dragonstone, the place she was born at. They were all on fire in her mind. My brother will never take back the Seven Kingdoms, Dani said. This she knew for a long time, even if she refused to acknowledge it. She never dared to whisper those words before, but she said them out loud now. Ser Jorah looked at her in a curious way. You think not? He could not lead an army even if my lord husband gave him one, Dani said. He has no coin, and the only knight who follows him reviles him as less than a snake. The Dothraki make mock of his weakness. He will never take us home. Wise child, the knight said. I am no child, she told him fiercely. She heeled her silver into a gallop. Soon she left Jorah and Irri behind. Warm wind danced in her hair. She didn't stop until dusk. The slave set up her tent beside a little pool. Her men were around, and she knew soon the story of what she did will go around, making them laugh. When Viserys will finally reach the camp, everyone will know his shame. A Khalasar held no secrets. Dani gave her horse to the slaves to be taken care of and went into her tent. It was cool in there, and as she closed the flap, a line of red from the dying sun illuminated one of the eggs. It looked alive for a moment. Dani blinked. Stone, she reminded herself. They were only stone. Even Illyroy said that. Yet when she put a palm on the big black one, it was warm, almost hot. The sun, Dani whispered. The sun warmed them as they rode. She ordered the handmaids to make her a bath. Doria built a fire just outside the tent, and Irri and Jiqui went for the large copper tub. It was another wedding gift. When the tub was filled with hot water, Irri helped Dani into it and went in after her. Have you ever seen a dragon? She asked as Irri scrubbed her back. Dani knew that the first dragons came from the east, from the Shadowlands. Maybe there were still some around, in the islands of the Jade Sea. Dragons are gone, Khaleesi, Irri said. Dead, agreed Jiqui. Long and long ago. She was told that the last Targaryen dragons died only a century and a half ago, in the time of Aegon III, the Dragonbane. That didn't seem such a long time to Dani. Everywhere? She said, disappointed. Even in the east. On the day Valyria fell, magic died. Not the enchanted blades, nor storm singers or dragons could change that. But Dani hoped that the east was different. Tales of manticores and basilisks from far away reached her, and people who cast spells, warlocks and arrowmancers in Ashai, blood mages and shadowbinders prowling the night. If they could still be around, why not the dragons? No dragon, Irri said. Brave men kill them, for dragon terrible evil beasts. It is known, agreed Jiqui. A trader from Karth once told me that dragons came from the moon, blonde Doria said as she warmed a towel. Jiqui and Irri were Dany's age, but Doria was older, almost 20. Illaroy rescued her from a brothel in Lys. Now Dany looked at her. The moon? He told me the moon was an egg, Khaleesi, the Lyseni girl said. Once there were 2 moons in the sky, but one wandered too close to the sun and cracked from the heat. 1,000 dragons poured forth and drank the fire of the sun. That is why the dragons breathe flame. One day, the other soon will kiss the sun too, and then it will crack, and the dragons will return. The 2 Dothraki girls giggled. You are a foolish straw-head slave, Irri said. Moon is no egg, moon is God, woman wife of sun. It is known, Jiqui agreed. Dany was pink as she climbed out of the tub. She lay down so Jiqui can oil her and clean her paws. After Irri sprinkled her with cinnamon, Dori brushed her hair into shiny silver while Daenerys was thinking about eggs and dragons and the moon. Dinner was fruit and cheese and fried bread with honey wine. Dori, stay and eat with me, Dany said, and she sent the other 2 away. Dori had hair like honey and eyes blue like the sky. She now lowered those eyes. You honor me, Khaleesi, she said, but it was no honor, only service. For a long time, the women sat and talked. Later that night, when Khal Drogo came, Dany was up and waiting for him. The man stopped in the entrance and stared at her, surprised, and shred her sleeping silks. This night we must go outside, my lord, she said. The Dothraki believed that anything important must have been done under the sky. Drogo followed her out, the bells in his hair jingling. Not far from her tent, Dany drew her down, but when he tried to turn her over, she objected gently. No, she said. This night I would look on your face. The khalasar knew no privacy. Dany felt the eyes as she took off his clothes and did what Dori told her to do. It didn't matter that they stared. She was the Khaleesi. The only one that mattered was Khal Drogo, and his eyes shone differently as she mounted him. She rode him as wild as she ever rode a horse, and he called out her name at the end. Much later, Jiqui touched her soft belly and said, Khaleesi, you are with child. I know, Dany said. It was the day she turned 14. And this is where Daenerys III ends. Now, this chapter introduces Ghost Grass, another apocalyptic event occurring in Pentos. Also, in this chapter, if Viserys had just stayed in Pentos like Illaroy wanted, he probably would have survived since, as we'll find out in the next few Daenerys chapters, Jorah does an extremely bad job at keeping Viserys alive unless this was on purpose. Now, the final piece of contention in this chapter is who was sending Daenerys these dragon dreams to keep her alive. Now, did Quaithe send the dragon dream, or was it someone else? The difference between the HBO TV show and book. In the book, Daenerys orders the khalasar to stop, not because she feels sorry for the slaves, but because she is awed by the sight of the Dothraki Sea. Ricardo seems to be based on Jorgo. Meanwhile, it is Ricardo who makes Viserys walk after he attacks Dany. An additional scene in the show has Ser Jorah and Ricardo discuss Dothraki weapons. Irri then appears and announces Daenerys' pregnancy. Jorah then goes off to inform Varys. Thanks for watching, but before you go, our book The Queen Games is coming soon. Pre-orders are open right now, and they directly support the future of the series. We've also dropped a cinematic trailer. The link is below if you want to first look at the world, the cultures, and the queens who fight to rule. And this part is important. You decide what happens next. There's a voting page linked below where you can influence the direction of all future books, alliances, betrayals, and all major decisions. Check out the links in the description, and remember to subscribe for more.